Please welcome.
And live we are, episode 4, MCW Cast. You already know I'm Legacy MCW announcer Larry Legend.
And I'm Dan McDevitt.
And I'm Tara.
And we are so glad to be joining you once again. Don't forget, every Tuesday at 8 is when you can join the cast. And we want to hear from you on Twitter and social media. And so far, so good. The outpouring of support has been tremendous.
That's right. We had a great show last week with our special guest, Kevin Eck, in studio. He had lots of great stories, and lots of people were interested in hearing what he had to say. So I want to say thank you to Kevin Eck for joining us here last week.
Yeah, it was a real journey for me. He was kind of putting together the pieces of my childhood. You know, just like I said, I remember when I used to see the Baltimore Sun write about wrestling. To me, that was like, hey, this stuff is legitimate. Don't listen to what your friends say. So hearing him about his career with the Baltimore Sun and how that led to WCW and WWE, it was like a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, one of the neat things about some of his stories was the overlapping elements of it. You know, we talked about that, and that's something that is very unique to professional wrestling, how it just spills over into other areas, and there's a lot of overlapping and coincidences.
Yeah, and his story's so well-rounded and so interesting, especially from like so many people, wrestling fans out there that, you know, have wanted to be involved in wrestling but never actually wanted to get into the ring, or, you know, the desire to get in the ring and take the bumps and do that stuff, from a guy that's had so many different jobs kind of behind the scenes with, you know, many of the big companies. And I just think his story's neat from that aspect, from a behind the scenes, just WCW editor and WWE writer, and now he's behind the scenes in Ring of Honor. You know, so yeah, just, you know, kind of well-rounded, interesting story.
Indeed, and thank you again for joining us for Kevin's story. We got another great guest that'll be joining us in the studio this week, and we'll be bringing them out in just a moment. But again, I want to shout out Buy Me a Coffee, and that's going to lead into kind of our guest here. We'll do the big reveal, but Buy Me a Coffee, just $3. Our MCW announcer, Danny Mays, did a wonderful voiceover, just breaking it down how you out there watching us each week can support. So we just want to shout out all the folks that bought us a coffee and went to Teespring and grabbed some merch. We want to shout y'all out right now.
Yeah, and join memberships. We got a couple new members on the Buy Me a Coffee.
Yeah, shout out to Mike Bischoff, Kevin O'Brien, Dan Garrett, let's see, who else? Greg Papalukas, and Rich Barnett. Yep.
And
So
Greg
thank you for that.
Papalukas, talk about an MCW OG as a fan. A guy,
Every show, right? He's been
not
from
just
day
every,
one, right?
but from day one.
Day one,
Back
yeah.
in 1998, Patapsco Arena. Greg, definitely an MCW fan. If there is an MCW fan Hall of Fame, Greg's on the first ballot.
Well, you know who else is on that ballot, Dan? I'm going to shout out another one of our fans, the Good Doctor.
Absolutely.
Okay, the Good Doctor's right behind Greg Papalukas.
Well, I want to read what Greg wrote, actually, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
To Dr. D, because he's got a whole
Right on.
too. But Greg said, we always give the most to the fans, and MCW has given him the opportunity to meet many legends. He enjoys countless memorable matches, and he's created memories here that will last a lifetime. And I just want to say that just embodies what some of our most loyal fans have, experienced through MCW. And so we thank you for that.
Yeah, we thank you for that, Greg. And Greg, right now in front of everyone, you might not know this, Dan, and you might not know this, Tara, but thanks to Greg Papalukas, I'm an ordained minister. I actually presided over Greg's wedding to his wife, Janice, all the way back in 2010. So,
Wow.
Amongst my things that I'm known to do, announce, host parties, I also am an ordained minister, and the first wedding I ever did was Greg Papalukas' wedding, and he reached out to me. He said, Larry, we love you as the announcer of MCW, and we couldn't think of a better person to be there on a day like this for Janice and I than you.
Wow.
So he asked me, and I was honored, and yeah, since doing Greg's wedding, I've done about 12 or 13 ceremonies across, New Jersey, New York, Baltimore, and I just did another MCW MC, Pat Anthony.
I was just going to bring that up, that you have done other wrestling-connected weddings.
My first Halloween wedding. Pat had a Halloween-themed wedding, and I just did that, and it all started with you, Greg. So thank you for supporting us. Thank you for those words, and heck yeah,
Maybe you're the good luck charm. Maybe I should have had you.
All right.
Maybe I should have had you oversee my wedding instead of the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, well,
the marriage would have lasted longer than 6 months.
I don't know. You did that wedding in a ring at Michael's 8th Avenue, so I don't know if anything could have saved it. But we sure did dance the night away that night. I remember that, dancing with Stevie Richards.
That was a fun night.
Toby was there.
And real quick, the memberships on Buy Me a Coffee, the monthly memberships. One of the things we talked about, and we're going to start this week, is we're going to kind of give every week those members, and Greg and some of the others that signed up will see behind the scenes, and we're going to have them help us with each week's show by preparing questions, and we're going to let them know ahead of time who our guests are, and have them kind of help us put together some questions for them. So we'll be that'll be the behind the scenes content on the Buy Me a Coffee.
And that's kind of a perk
this week. Yeah,
a
it's
perk.
a perk.
Okay,
yeah, it's a perk
for being a subscriber.
For being a subscriber and helping us out.
Right.
I like that.
We'll give
Yeah.
those loyal listeners and supporters access to the stars that we bring in here and the guests that we have. They'll be able to ask questions in advance that we can do, and then they'll be able to hear their responses live. So I think that's pretty neat.
So yeah, if you want to buy us a coffee or become a subscriber so you can take advantage of that perk, you know where to go. Just www.buymeacoffee/MCW Cast. We want to hear from you, and we want to feel that support.
So what'd you guys think about the Royal Rumble? We're kind of a week removed from it at this point, but
Dan, I got to tell you, for the first time ever, I did not care that there was not a live crowd there. I thought that it was done so well, or maybe I've just become adjusted to the Thunderdome style setup, but I was captivated, in particular by the two Rumble matches. They were both very, very well done. And I was saying to a friend of mine, you know what? I'll bet you this being the first Royal Rumble since Pat Patterson passed away, and with him being the inventor of it, that they really wanted to knock a home run out of that arena in memory of him, because without him, we wouldn't have had this many Royal Rumbles.
Yeah, and I think he pretty much always, from my understanding, had influence, even up until last year.
Yeah, so you can imagine,
because it was his thing.
Yeah, you can imagine how many times they were like, "Well, what would Pat do?" You know what I mean?
Right.
I would love to be a fly on the wall back there, but I'm sure a lot of what would Pat say about this was figured into the way that they set it up. But I thought it was great. Congratulations to Dan and I. We picked the correct winner for the Women's Royal Rumble, the EST, Bianca Belair.
Yeah, and
there's been some controversy there with that. Did her feet touch the floor? And
I see that.
Great call out.
Screenshots with the circling and everybody's like measuring them. I don't know. It looks like both feet, and it was not once, but like a couple of times during that match, actually.
Oh wow!
So, and the one that seemed to be the most controversial was where it looked like both of her feet, right towards the end, it looked like both of her feet were in fact on the ground.
That is
now, because I haven't watched the programming, but I have seen that on social media with a lot of the fans. Mm-hmm. Is that something that they've taken onto TV?
Now that I'm not aware of. I saw,
or is it just like a social media with the fans?
I saw it on social media with the fans as I was scrolling. I didn't see WWE address it. I think she's been interviewed since then, and there hasn't been any sort of like where Rhea Ripley, who was the other competitor that was last in the ring, is like making a big stink about, well, she was out, which is what you would think would be if it was being played into the story. But no, I have seen a lot of folks online pointing out that both of her feet touched the ground.
I'm not anticipating they're going to bring it up. I mean, to be honest.
No, I don't think so either.
They're going to.
Yeah, I just didn't know if they tried to run with it, to kind of further a storyline or take it to get, in other words, get some mileage out of it. They probably will at one point. I guess they can if. Sometimes the fans do stuff like that give the WWE, that open a door to give them mileage, to set up like a match afterwards.
I certainly wouldn't mind if that sets up a feud between those two, because they're two of my favorites in WWE right now. So I certainly wouldn't mind if that leads to an extended program between the two of them.
Indeed. I thought that both Rumbles went really well, and a little bit more controversy that sprung from the Rumble. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but about, the Men's Royal Rumble ended with Randy Orton and Edge, which is kind of a nice storybook marker for last year's Rumble when Edge came back. But a lot of folks online were like, well, there were so many young, hungry, new stars that could have been made by winning the Royal Rumble. I think this may have been Edge's fourth win, or he's had multiple Royal Rumble wins. I'm probably way off on that, but a lot of folks were like, okay, it was well done, it was awesome, but Edge and Randy Orton again. This is the problem with WWE. They don't take younger guys and elevate like an Apollo Crews or.
So, what if they had done that, but with Edge? What if the final two had been Edge and one of these younger guys that you're talking about?
I bet you the controversy would have been a lot more uproarious then if that would have happened. So, yeah, good call out, Tara.
So, technically, I'm just going to go on the record here and say I technically wasn't wrong. Because my pick for Brock Lesnar, who wasn't in there, was because they pay him so much money, they're not going to bring him back and just have him lose. And the same goes for Edge, because Edge has a huge money deal for WWE. So, same principled theory. I just think, they're paying Edge so much money. He's getting stupid money.
I'm sure, yeah. Because he could really get, he isn't supposed to really be wrestling.
Right. Well,
he got the fusion.
But he's, I guess through, he's got cleared by apparently like several different doctors and everything. So, but just the point being, they're paying a guy, and it's like a per appearance and limited appearance kind of deal. They're, not, you're paying him so much money, come back, it only made sense to have him win.
Yeah.
And I think that's how WWE just kind of, whether it's wrong or not, I just think that's the promoter in me that goes, man, you're paying this guy this much money. In other words, every appearance needs to be impactful because you're paying him so much money. So whether you, like what you said, that it was a whole lot of controversy, well, it was impactful that he won.
Yeah.
And whether or not he goes on to, I don't know, has he announced who he's, I imagine it would be Roman. I imagine it's him and Roman.
Well, he's gone to each show. He's the winner now.
But he hasn't decided yet.
I'm not sure what happened SmackDown, but he has been going to like NXT and, talking. Maybe he'll reveal his who he's picked after.
I would imagine Roman. Right. It seems like.
Yeah, probably Roman.
Seems like that's the match.
Spear versus spear.
That's the match.
Yeah.
That's the probably,
hair versus hair. They both got great hair.
Well, I think part of the problem that fans are having with this is that so many times WWE has put someone in a winning position who's a part-time guy. And, like you mentioned, there's all these young, hungry guys that could have been put in there. And like you mentioned, Dan, from a promoter's point of view, well, if you're paying them the money, you got to get your money's worth.
Yeah.
So, I can see both sides of it, but I get why fans are not seeing both sides of it because, hey, it's another part-timer winning. Okay, great. So, we know that he's going to have limited runs, and then that's it. So it doesn't really advance his career, so to speak.
Yeah.
The way that a Royal Rumble win could do for one of these other people that you mentioned.
Indeed, Tara, indeed. Well, I'll tell you this much. Although there was a lot of talk online, a lot of chatter, again, I'm going to stand behind. This was one of the times that I was able to suspend my disbelief as a fan and not really be kind of like let down by the fact that I would normally see a bunch of signs and people screaming and woo after every chop. We didn't really get that. But I still thought that they did a stellar job with both of the Rumbles. I thought it was a stellar offering.
They've gotten better with the piped-in sound, I will say.
Yes.
They've got it so it's more appropriate, where it's booing when it's supposed to boo and cheering when it's supposed to cheer. I just wish they'd not do it while people are speaking. I haven't quite figured out why when there's a promo or something, there's still crowd. I don't know. I just feel like that's not necessary.
Well, they're probably learning as they go, honestly, trying different things out, seeing if it moves the needle a little bit, what the feedback is like. And that's the way that you can kind of tap into what works. We know from doing, MCW shows for so long and how organically things can happen and become like a hit.
Right.
And speaking of things happen organically, I kind of made a suggestion about a segment to add into our show, just to kind of give people a little bit of wrestling each week too, and some video footage, and our fans to have a discussion about it, like a blast from the past, like an MCW blast from the past.
All right.
And Larry, the one that I want to bring in and I want to kind of show the fans, and fans that have been, people that have been fans of MCW for a long time will remember it. Some of our newer fans won't. And if there's people that don't know what MCW is, it'll kind of give them a glimpse into something. There was a clip that was shared online a couple weeks ago, and I saw it by Ricky Owens, our correspondent.
Okay, yeah, I know Ricky.
And it was from back in 2006, 2007, when the fire exits was a big issue.
Oh my
you made
gosh.
a fire exit.
Oh
and,
yeah.
You came back, and I guess Joel was ring announcing, and I forgot until I saw this video clip how crazy and how over this was when this happened. We're going to take a second and go and let the fans see it, and then we can come back and discuss it.
I love this footage. Let's look at it now.
As they say, I think business may have picked up.
What is he doing out here? Is he bitter because he lost his spot?
He's the man that calls it like it is.
Says who?
Says me. I prefer Larry over Joel.
These are my people.
There you go. Preach on, brother, preach on. You got a problem with that, Strauss?
These people are disrespectful.
Joel needs to get the hell out of here.
Joel needs to stand his
And
ground.
look, he's gonna buckle up. What the hell is he doing? The referee trying to get involved here. Whoa!
There you go, kid.
You gotta be kidding me! He just pushed Larry Kennedy Phillips down. Oh boy!
Oh, come on.
We're getting more than what we're bargaining for here. Oh, look out! Oh no! Oh, he's got him! He's got him!
Don't you dare.
Knock his ass right on out of here!
Is this in the job description?
See you, Joel! There you go.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you just took me back. The fire exits, and no one was announcing that there wasn't any fire exits in the building except for me.
Yeah, man, the people were not having it.
No.
They were not. They got pissed when Joel even attempted to mention the fire exits.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh
And,
yeah.
that was an organic moment, and I forgot about that. The fans, our fans back then, that probably loved it. I mean, you even turned it into a T-shirt.
Yeah, we did. You know what? It's funny you mentioned that because I'm become a merch selling machine. You know, I'm taking tips from Lio Rush here, and there's
Right.
always stuff. There's always a market out there, but I just want to pull it out here. The very first Larry Legend shirt was this one here, and
Fire
there it is,
exits.
right on there. The fire exits. I think that's a Jeff
That's
Jones design here. We didn't move many of these, but that's okay. But yeah, that did happen very organically, and it's funny because a lot of people don't know this. In my travels over the past 18 years, I've been able to take other things like the fire exits, which was you pulling me aside as your announcer and saying, "Now look, Larry, the fire marshal said he's going to shut this show down."
It was serious shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He said he was going to shut the show down. We had a packed, more people than I've ever seen in that North Point flea market. And you told me, you were like, "Look, I need you to go out there, and before you do anything else, you say, before we go on, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to tell you about these fire exits."
Yeah,
and I went,
pointed out. So for the it was like a rib because for the sake of the fans, the explanation. We had come back.
Mm-hmm.
We're having these shows at the North Point Market, drawing huge crowds.
yeah.
Huge crowds. You know, probably over 1,000.
yeah, I'd say, yep.
And they were. Everybody was so excited. Well, you know, somebody called the fire marshal. Mm-hmm. And the fire marshal came to one of our shows. We went through all the legal stuff, you know, with the state of Maryland, the Athletic Commission, the building owner. We had to have plans drawn up. It was, you know, working with the fire marshal. And he showed up at the show, and his whole thing was, he kept saying to me, "You need to make sure that it is 100% clear," when he saw the crowd and the amount of people, that people know where the fire exits before this show, before the bell rings for the first time.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like you've made it clear to the fans of where the fire exits are, I'm shutting the show down. And he was serious.
Oh, yeah.
So I was stressed out of my mind, and I'm going to you in the back going, Larry, you don't understand. He's like, I'll announce the fire exits. And I'm like, you announce it multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, you do not bring out the first match until every person in that building knows where the fire exits
And I'm like,
are.
okay, Dan.
You're like,
Okay, I got it.
So then you're kind of like going to show it to me, like, here, Dan, and you make such a ridiculous ordeal over the fire exits, and you spend like 15 minutes
It was
pointing them out.
so long. Yeah, that first time.
The fans turned it into a freaking gimmick. And then from that point on, to the moment you would hit the curtain, the people would chant fire exits because they wanted a 15-minute explanation of where the fire exits were.
Right.
Like, they wanted you to point it out and spend 15 minutes. It just got over.
It did, and it came from a very real place. And since then, I've had other promoters that I've worked for who have said to me, hey, Larry, we don't have that big of a crowd here tonight. I need you to really go out there and hammer forth that we got these hot dogs on sale. Because we got the hot dogs on sale from wherever, wholesale. If we can,
Costco,
you know what I mean? If we could push them, maybe we'll have your envelope will be a little bigger. So I have applied that same type of ceremony over selling hot dogs that it's very often at shows nowadays I get people who are chanting juicy hot dogs the same way that they used to chant for the fire exits.
You need another shirt.
I do, yeah. I need another one. But yeah, that is an amazing. And Tara, I want to tell you something. And you don't know that I'm about to say this right now, but I can tell you that every time that I ever did anything physical in the ring, whether it was the Holy Rollers giving me their double neck breaker deal, or Tim Burke, R.I.P. boss, giving me the big Samoa drop. Tara, you would always go out of your way to find me at the end and tell me how fluidly, I did my, little spiel. And I never forgot that. I never heard it from, RJ really, but you always used to go out of your way to let me know that looked really good out there, Larry. Oh, you looked really natural, taking it from Tim Burke. And I never will forget that. So thank you for that. I know I got a little physical there. That all came from RJ. Any training all came from RJ, sometimes Earl the Pearl. But even as an announcer, I didn't know that my path was going to lead me to doing things like that. And there it is.
Well, and when I transitioned to ring announcing here, I thought of you, and I tried to think, what would Larry do?
Oh,
you were always in the back of my mind. So,
the heartwarming moments on episode 4 of the MCW Cast.
But it wouldn't be
all right, it's all love, right across the table, sister.
So look, that's another thing maybe for our members in our members in the Buy Me a Coffee memberships. We'll kind of let them suggest moments each week to have a little,
little
blast from the past and kind of discuss it, whether it be, a quick clip or something that happened at a show that we can kind of discuss, and how that moment happened, or what was, from a booking standpoint, how that kind of, that moment.
I challenged the fans. Remember, didn't we do Fire one time? We did Fire one time in MCW, didn't we? I think you took it.
One time.
In Fort Meade.
Yeah, Fort Meade with
that.
Oh, I remember. It had to be Fort Meade.
It had to have been Fort Meade. So I got hardcore with MCW before I even knew what CZW was. You were doing that type of hardcore stuff. So that's a blast for the past right there.
All right. Well, we get to take a commercial break.
Oh yeah, we got to pay.
With our guest, MCW and Ring of Honor, Joe Keys.
Cup of Joe.
That's
Cup
right.
of Joe.
And that goes perfectly with our Buy Me a Cup.
So let's take a quick commercial break.
Yeah, let's do it.
When we come back, we'll have Joe Keys in studio.
Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
The story goes like this. This is your friend Daryl Johnson, better known as the one and only Dr. D, the Doctor of Devastation, the Almanac of Information, the original Mark of Excellence, and I will forever, always will be a mark for MCW Pro Wrestling and the MCW Cast. Stay tuned, and remember, stay Bruiser strong. End of story.
All right, we are back, and we have our special guest here. Joe Keys, welcome to the MCW Cast. Glad you could join us today.
Thank you. Wonder if anybody ever said that when they're on a podcast. Everybody says like, "Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you." If anybody just sat it down and be like, "Nah, it sucks. Thanks for wasting my time, but go ahead and talk." You know?
I bet you the first time that we have Ken Dixon on the podcast, it probably might go a little bit like that.
I don't know. I've definitely done some podcasts in the past where it was just definitely a clear waste of my time. But it's somebody that just wants to talk to the wrestlers, you know what I mean? But they ask the same, like, repetitive questions, and there's, like, awkward pauses in between. And so when are you going to WWE? And then
you're like, you're smart enough. My favorite is when, have you ever been on one where you can clearly see the podcast host is, like, reading your Wikipedia or, like, reading behind you as you're talking? They're reading, like, cagematch.com.
Yeah, I have. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
But for whatever reason, like my cage match and my Wikipedia says I was trained by like DJ Hyde and Gulak.
Oh my god!
Which was never the
case.
I
mean, not for Gulak. Well,
Gulak, yeah, I'll keep the Gulak one on there, absolutely. But the first one, that was never the case. It's just because I did Dojo Wars, and Dojo Wars were quick to throw our names up on IMBD or whatever.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, smart man.
And so people just quick to wrap it all together that I was trained by DJ Hyde. So
and with Wikipedia, can't like anybody go in?
Anybody can. I can go in and set up a corporal punishment Wikipedia, or if you have
one. Brother, there is one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can edit it.
Yeah,
I can edit it and say you were the WWF champion at 82 if I wanted to.
Right,
now people check it, regularly when there are edits made, and you can dispute them. But yeah, anybody can get on Wikipedia and make some changes.
Yeah.
You'll find some wrestlers in there. They don't have like really abstract Wikipedia pages for themselves. Like he wrestled like Johnny 2x4 in Tennessee in like 1995.
He's the best wrestler to ever step in a ring.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, who is this guy? But as it is.
Well, things are going good for you, buddy. Like it seems, Yeah,
I like that shirt.
Well, it's tight.
Well, that, and also I like I like that logo on there. That's a good sign of things to come and where you currently are and what you're doing. But
we'll definitely get to that.
Oh yes,
we definitely want to hear a lot about what you're doing there. But I'd like our fans to know a little bit about Joe Keys before you came to MCW. What brought you in?
Right.
Were you a lifelong fan? How'd you get here?
I'm probably one of few people I know that didn't get into wrestling until I was like a teenager. So I didn't start watching wrestling until 2007, 2008. By that time, I was 13, 14 already. And I didn't watch WWE. I watched TNA at first. And the one wrestler, I remember the segment that drew my attention, like maybe put down the remote and like, I need to watch whatever's about to happen, was Awesome Kong. Like Awesome Kong was my first favorite wrestler ever. And it's because she just beat the piss out of like the beautiful people. And I thought this was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like some large black woman beating up a bunch of like blonde bimbos and whatnot.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and hope that this continues. And then when that segment was done, I remember it was like the Motor City Machine Guns in LAX or something. Like, whoa, hold on, what is it? What?
Yeah.
Throwing this away. What is this? I watched that, and then Angle came out when he was just new, and him and Samoa Joe are just beating the piss out of each other. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I thought this was like, this is not WWE. I'm going to watch this again next week.
Yeah.
And there was Awesome Kong again beating the hell out of the beautiful people and the Kurt Angle again, and I just got hooked after that, and then I expanded more into WWE at the time. And I think the big thing going on right there was like Edge and Undertaker, like Orton and Cena was just picking up. Or Cena just came back from the Rumble.
Right.
And I didn't know any. I knew what John Cena was, but I didn't understand what John Cena was.
Right.
And I just started, I got hooked, and I got hooked hard. But this was before like internet viewership was a big thing. So I just had to watch. I remember the weekly schedule. I had to watch Raw on Monday, the WWE ECW offshoot on Tuesday, and then there was a Superstars on Thursday, and TNA was on Thursday, and then SmackDown on Friday. And that was my schedule. I was hooked to that, and it was weird because I'm 14 at the time, and like trying to tell my friends, like, you guys know about this stuff? I'm like, yes, this stuff's stupid. I'm like, oh, well,
right.
I'm watching by myself now.
Well, that's awesome that it was Impact. It was kind of TNA that hooked you and not WWE.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I remember me, Rob, Ken, and McBride went and did the AEW extra work for a full year when they were here in Baltimore, like 2019. And walk around and see all the names, like there's Omega, Mox, and cool. And I saw Awesome Kong there, and I was like, it's her.
Yeah.
It's her. Like, I'm marking out over here.
Oh, wow.
And I'm with Sonny Kiss at the time, and Sonny's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, Awesome Kong was my first favorite wrestler, and I'm not over it. And Sonny's like, you want to go meet her? I'm like, I can't. I can't.
Did you meet her?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh, Joe!
I ran away. I marked out too hard.
And she's no longer. She didn't last too much longer with them after that. That was your shot.
That was my shot. And like I've been in the Ring of Honor locker room with Angelina and Velvet. I was like, yeah, you got beat up by Awesome Kong.
Yeah.
The first time I laid my eyes on Awesome Kong was like, ooh.
That never goes away. I mean, I was in my mid-40s when I brought Sting in, I was like thinking, man, I could probably slip out there and schoolboy him and get a win while he's talking. I wonder how. I just paid him a lot of money to sign autographs, but I wonder if I just slipped out there and pulled a quick one on him, like if he'd be pissed. I didn't, obviously.
Obviously.
Like so.
That was probably like the first like starstruck moment I really had. I mean, it happened 2 years ago.
Wow.
So to say,
Well, maybe Kong is listening to the MCW cast. If you are, Awesome Kong, here's your number one fan. You gave him butterflies in 2019.
Yeah, I totally ran away from introducing myself. But from there, I went through high school, and again, like, people tend to grow out of wrestling, I guess, when they're in high school, and UFC was the thing. And I didn't care. I liked what I liked. I was going to watch it. It was still new to me, and it still kept that the same effect that it did on me as it would to kids when they were younger. I went to college, and it kind of dipped a bit because of different interests and different whatnot. But I remember there was a show in Baltimore. It was in May 2014. And I went. It may have been just like a live event. And I got a flyer. And it said, like, come meet Matt Hardy at 1000 Joppa Farm Road or something like that. And look into the new school. And I'm like, what? This is a flea market. Okay, that's near my parents' place. I'm going to go visit. And that was...
Was that did we do an open house?
That was the open house.
Yeah.
Is that what we did when we came back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I heard... That's how I heard was the flyer. Flyering out at the Royal Farmery. It may have been First Mariner at the time still.
That's right. It went under a lot of different names.
Yeah. And I remember there was like 30, 40 other people, and there was Lionel and Patrick, and like Ken was in the ring, and Jesse K was in the ring, and I think the Punk Rock All-Stars were there. And like you had gotten up and you started giving the rundown, and Pat Brink started giving the rundown of what it was going to be and whatnot. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like contemplating life over. I'm like, do I really want to do this? Like, am I stupid for wanting to do this? Like, what are my parents going to think? What are my friends going to think? But I knew I didn't want to be the age I am now. I'm 28 now. I was 21 back then. I didn't want to be the age I am now and decide that, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have seen, and then have that regret. Those 7 years went by without stepping forward and doing it. So I signed up. I signed up for the June class. I said, screw it. I'm just going to start right away. I'm not going to push it off until July. And that's how I started here, June 3rd, 2014.
You always remember your dates.
So interesting. This brings up another question. Because obviously I've been doing this for a long time. I opened up Bone Breakers back in '97. And, we have a pretty good legacy of people that have made it, from Lita, the Mickey James, and Orlando Jordan's going all the way back. But we never had a group or class quite like that class you signed up on, and more as time goes on is really going to kind of be, it's becoming to me like a legendary class because obviously right off the bat, like pretty quickly in that first class of the MCW of Bone Breakers or the MCW Training Center version 2, when we opened it back up, you have Patrick Clark, Velveteen Dream, Lio Rush, Jessie K, who's Jessica Carr. She had been around a little bit, but she was really, really kind of training hard at that class. Ken Dixon had been around for a second, but he has, so obviously Jessica Carr is the, NXT referee. You yourself are having your
SmackDown.
what did I say?
You said NXT, but she's SmackDown.
NXT. Yeah. Well, she was NXT, but she's now SmackDown.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So, and then you are kind of now, you and Ken both are kind of getting your breakthrough in Ring of Honor. You just had, we're on television, you're getting featured. So it's interesting that more and more, like, man, from that first class, all these guys, some, pop, a little bit quicker, but that class is becoming kind of legendary. That first class back, and you were part of that. Like, it's interesting. We never had a group of so many. I mean, obviously, hundreds of people have trained and come through. Many don't make it through. Some make it further than others in training, but never had a group where, like, from that class, like, so many guys are guys and girls are becoming, like, breaking through and getting names for themselves. So, props to you guys. Was it a little bit of pressure? Because you, especially looking at you, like, the last couple years, you've really gotten serious, and not that you weren't serious back then, but I feel like watching you from the outside, like, your motivation has increased 20-fold in, like, the last 2 years, 3 years.
Right.
Was there, like, pressure on you, like, seeing, like, Lio and Patrick kind of go right away, and then even Jessica got signed by NXT, and was there a little pressure on you?
There was always that pressure. Not so much for Jessica, because she moved to Florida about a few months after I started with her. But when I started, it was always like Patrick and Lio were like the gold standard. Like, these guys are incredible, and they're prodigies and whatnot. And they were always, like, showered with the praise, and, like, this isn't sour grapes. They're fantastic athletes, they're fantastic wrestlers. But Pat Brink would always tell us it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I feel like me and Ken Dixon and Dante, who came along later, we were definitely on the marathon portion.
Right.
And it seemed like those guys were just sprinting. And it's not like the means to the end, so to say, because they got to where they are now, and they were just athletically blessed more, say, than I was, than Dixon was. They also got their opportunities, and they killed it. Like, I got my opportunity later. I got my opportunity just a few months ago with Gresham. That was my opportunity. Lio got his way earlier, and he killed it, and he didn't look back. I was always told everybody kind of gets one of those opportunities, and you know when it happens, and you just have to be ready for it when it does, because you might not always get a second. And, like, talking with this legendary class, everybody that's getting their opportunity at different phases along the line, they're crushing it, and we're not looking back. And there's always that pressure now. There's always that pressure, because now the eyes are on you.
So maybe pressure wasn't a good word, but motivated, kept you motivated?
Motivated, absolutely.
And there's something to point out, like, there's two different things that happen with people in their careers. And like, Lio and Patrick, they did get opportunities, say, earlier, but they also spent the next couple years, like, still finding themselves in the ring. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think they got opportunities before they found themselves.
Right.
And I think the reverse is opposite for you. Like, I've noticed in the last year and a half, 2 years, like, I can tell from a promoter and trainer and all that's been around, I can tell, like, Joe Keys knows who Joe Keys is in the ring now. And you didn't 8 years ago. So, like, you're getting your opportunity, I think, at a different time, but maybe a better time, because you're more, I think, as a, sitting, looking at the outside, more seasoned, and you have a better understanding of who you are in the ring.
Yeah, more mentally mature, so to say. Like, 22-year-old Joe, if he were sitting here looking at 28-year-old Joe that he is now, he would not believe that this is the human being I would come out to be. He wouldn't believe that, you just wrestled for the pure title on Ring of Honor television against arguably the best technical wrestler on the planet today. That just wasn't, like, fathomable.
Right.
That wasn't even in the short scope of things. Like me, definitely when I first started, the lack of confidence was there. And I think that was the big turning point for me, is when I got that confidence to be able to carry myself on my own. But until I got that point, like I found myself like I needed to rely on Rob and Ken's presence all the time, because I was terrified to do anything as a singles wrestler.
Yeah.
I absolutely was terrified, and I definitely personally credit those guys just by being there, just by being the Dixon line, for helping me develop as mature as an adult, because I was always young 20s, and they were in their 30s. Not to say anything about their age, but they were mature grown men. I was still like finding myself as a human being.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing I wanted to bring up next, actually, Joe, was how did that grouping of the three of you and joining the Dixon line, like how did that transpire for some of our fans, maybe our newer fans who don't know the origins of that? How did that transpire? How did you wind up working together? And lead us through that if you can.
So when I first started, Ken was just breaking onto the show, and he was McBride's personal security. And McBride was looking to expand his sort of faction, his cult, so to say. He's like, all right, well, who do we got coming up? Because I don't want guys that have been here already and just kind of get washed over. I want new guys who I can like bring up. And Rob and I guess, were top of the class at that point, which wasn't saying much because there was like 6 people in the class. So it was like me, Ken, Rob, Patrick, Lio, Renee was there, but Renee wasn't going to fit that part, like John Cochran.
That's right. So that's another one from that first class she was training with, this Renee Michelle.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention. You know, another one, yet it just adds to people that went on from that class to
Well, that's something people maybe also don't know, is that our students serve as security at the live events, which kind of plays into this role, because you actually were legitimately working security.
And we had to hold back some rowdy fans on 2 occasions. I remember that. Somebody decided it'd be a great idea to throw a water bottle at Justin Schlegel's face, and it hit him upside the head, and that's why I had that eye patch there for the better part of 2 years. So I don't know, Rob and I yoked that guy up and threw him out, so maybe that was the inspiration for it during the segment. But yeah, Rob and I just kind of got thrown together from the start to be with McBride. And we were Dixon's line security, and then it just turned to Dixon line security. And you know, Rob's always been such a exuberant personality. Like I can't do what that guy does. He just
You balanced each other really well, though.
Yeah, it worked.
And a lot of times that makes a good team and a good pairing. When you know what I mean? If you have 2 of the same identical person, it doesn't always work. A lot of times that's that different personality. Different is what kind of.
So I've always been kind of, not really introvert, but quiet to myself, and Rob's the exact opposite. And in something like wrestling, you need to be more outspoken, you need to be larger, and I credit a lot of that to Rob for pulling that out of me. Otherwise, I would just be like small shelled, like, oh crap, people are looking at me without my shirt on, pale Joe Keys. So the early part of my career, like I needed the Dixon line for myself. Otherwise, I would have sank hard. And just outside of wrestling, like Rob and Ken helped me develop as a human being, as a person, like find my confidence, like, or speak up for myself and whatnot. Because I was always just like a quiet 21, 22-year-old kid. And Rob pulled me aside and said, hey, you know, you're not a kid anymore. You're like big and you're 25 and you're kind of loud and intimidating. So like stop looking at yourself like you're 21 again. And then he slapped me or something like that.
Sounds like the Bruiser is what it sounds like, honestly.
Because RJ, when RJ first started coming around, like, I'm just going to hide from this human being as much as I can.
You heard the rumors,
No, I didn't hear the rumors. I experienced.
Right.
So, but those were the guys I traveled on the road with. And Lio was with us for a little while, but Lio was his own person. Lio had no problem speaking up for himself, which got him into some trouble. But I admire that quality, that characteristic in him.
Yeah, and listen, I and you know, you hear these like stories and backstage stories about guys, and that's you know, there's there's like the one side where you're told like shut up and be quiet, and some people
Right.
do that. But one of the things that got me to liking them right away, right from the beginning, is because they ignored Pat and RJ and Dean when they said, "Don't talk to Dan." You know what I mean? Like
That's still the rule today.
I know, but they just didn't listen. Like, and I remember I can't even remember how they got my number, but they would text me, you know, like late at night, and I was like, all right, these kids got balls, because I know they're telling them like leave Dan alone, but they're just like, and they text me like, hey, you were at the school, what did you think?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they'd ask me questions, or like, can you talk for a minute? And be like,
No.
12:30 on like a Wednesday.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, at that time, you know, my daughter's like 3 or 4, and I'm like, and I'd say, all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I should be like pissed, but I'm like, no, what do you guys want to talk about? And then they'd, you know, well, we were watching this match on Raw, and I'd be like, all right, these guys got balls. Like,
Yeah.
so like I admired that about them, and it made me kind of take a liking to them. Like early when it was when you guys were all young and you know and new, like, so that confidence and kind of having that, I think it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think you have to kind of use your best judgment, I guess. Like, and you know. When Lio got in WWE, you know, maybe he pushed it too much with the wrong people, you know. Yeah. But there's also, you know, at the right time can kind of make you stand out too. Like, you know, and it made me take a liking to them definitely a little bit earlier. I'm like, all right, these kids, they got balls, and I'll talk to them. And they were. And like you said, that confidence is probably a good word, because I could see that when I look back at you to when you started. That's a great description of, you're incredibly confident now. And I could definitely, like, looking back at you there, say, yeah, that confidence issue was probably was an issue at first. But, you know, now, you know, like, again, it goes back to like you finding yourself and saying, I really think I look at you and I can say, yeah, this kid knows who he is now. You know, he knows who he is.
I mean, you'll hear people talk all the time about how you have to have the butterflies in your stomach and whatnot. And there's some stupid quote that goes around. I don't know who said it, but somebody said, if you don't have butterflies in your stomach anymore, you need to get out. I don't get the butterflies anymore. And that's when I knew, like, I'd be good going forward. Even before my match with Gresham, or even before like the Game Changer debut. And these are big stages for wrestlers in 2020, 2021. I was calm. I wasn't nervous at all. I knew I was going to go in there. I knew it was going to be good. If like, anything was going to go astray, I knew we were going to fix it. We were going to go right back on point, and it was still going to be good. 2014, 2015, 2016, Joe, like standing behind the curtain before an MCW crowd, even if it's like 150 people, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind. Like, Rob, where are you? I need you. Right now, I'm about to do this. I'm about to do a Shamrock Cup entrance by myself. Like, there's 1,200 people out there. I'm absolutely terrified. I don't know what to do.
Well, you mentioned that you needed that unit to be able to get to the point where you could go out there as a singles competitor, and that's really where you found a tremendous amount of success at MCW.
Yeah.
You know, you had MCW ROH TV champion. You had the Best of 5 series with Joe Gacy, Shamrock Cup winner, of course. You know, so you did go on to great success here as a singles competitor, and I think it's interesting that you pointed out that you had to be together before you could go solo.
Yeah, and even starting with the Dixon line, there was a short period where I was a singles wrestler for maybe like 3 months, and then I tagged up with Dante, and then I was with Dante for the better part of the year, and through there, I was just able to build my confidence as an actual wrestler itself, not just getting attuned to being in front of like a live audience and whatnot.
That's where I first started. When you were teaming with Dante, is for me, from standing in the back, looking on. That's where, not just you, but Dante, that's where I started to notice both you guys are really getting confident in who they are, and they're figuring out who they are. So for me, that at that point in your career, when you and Dante, you guys got together, that's when I started noticing, like, both of these guys, they're really figuring it out.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was you had great chemistry together. I loved the Miami Vice vibe that you were giving off. Like, I thought it was great. Like, It was a really good pairing.
Yeah, that mustache was great from like curtain to curtain, but then the rest of my life outside of it was kind of
There's lots of people who have to live the gimmick 24/7. You know, physical appearance. You know, that's kind of the commitment that you make. I want to go back for just a second, Joe. You had mentioned, you know, when you first became a wrestling fan,
right?
And you know, you brought it up to your friends, and they're like, "Yeah, we know." Now, when you decided to become that wrestler, did you have the support? What was the reaction? How did you?
Oh, I hid it from people.
You did?
I hid it from everyone. I hid it from my parents for the better part of 2 years, and they didn't like. In the state of Maryland, you have the athletic commission, and you have to get licensed, and the license gets sent to your house. I had my sister like scope out the mail, and if something came from Maryland State Athletic Commission, like you need to snag that and grab it before like our mom or dad sees it. And I didn't get busted until one of my mom's coworkers went to the events with her kids.
Oh.
And he ran into her office that Monday and was like, "Your kid was great." And she's like, "What?"
That had to be. I'd never heard that story.
"What are you talking about, Adam?" It's like at the wrestling, the Joppa, and the MCW show.
Your mom must have just been like, "What?"
So
like,
funny.
And the pressure from me, why I never told them, is because I grew up in a household where like academia was held at such a high standard, and so my dad's a college professor, my mom's state prosecutor, now judge.
Oh wow!
So my academics and going to college and doing a good job was held at such a high standard. And then there's pro wrestling. Then there's pro wrestling. And pro wrestling is what I needed to do, but I understand at the same point, it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain this to my parents, so I'm just going to hide it as best as I can and, you know, make up every story that comes along.
So how shocked? I'm interested in how shocked was your mom?
So she didn't tell me right away. She just went.
Who's now a judge? He's a judge.
She's now a sitting judge in Harford County.
Right.
She just went to the next event, and she went to the website and she found the next event when it was in Joppa, and she went
without telling you.
Without telling me.
Oh really?
And
that's even funnier.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, right.
Because I already have like confidence issues, and I'm just getting used to being on the fan and whatnot. And there's McBride music, and then here comes Ryan, here comes Ken, there's Justin with the cape and the eye patch, and then there's me and Rob, and I'm looking around, I just see the most pissed off set of eyes staring at me.
Oh, that's how you found out that she knew?
And Rob's like, "What the hell's the matter with you?" Like, "My mom's here." He's like, "Cool, my mom doesn't go anyway." So like,
so your sister's a wrestling fan. Was she a wrestling fan before you got into the business?
She was. She started watching wrestling about the same time that I did, and she watched it because I watched it.
Yeah.
She likes it for different reasons. She likes the pomp and circumstance and the celebrity status and whatnot. I don't think she actually cares about the physicality. But she would come to the events. She would come to the events so she could meet like Kelly and whoever we would bring.
Right, people she knew from television.
Yeah, but she would just shut up about it.
Well, she was at WrestleMania because she sat with us at NXT TakeOver before WrestleMania back in 2017. She sat. I had an extra seat. I had an extra ticket.
I got it.
That was how I knew she was a wrestling fan. Yeah, so she sat with us.
So she would go to all the events, and I guess my mom was smarter than I thought and said, "I'm not going to tell Joe's sister. I'm not going to tell Julia that I'm going to this." So
she didn't tell anybody. She just went.
She, on a Saturday night, got her stuff, went to 1000 Joppa Farm Road, and
bought a ticket. And
what the hell is this? And there was her supposed-to-be doctor's son wrestling with the Kingdom.
In the ring in front of 1,000 people with your shirt off, bouncing around.
People were like saying derogative comments and whatnot, and there she is, just soaking up the atmosphere. Like, okay, I've definitely like paroled some of these people in here. I
failed as a parent.
Yeah.
So she just like didn't talk to me for a few months.
Really?
Well, I guess that was her way of coping without like chewing my head off, like accepting, okay, this is what my kid wants to do, and just kind of slowly coming around to it, and then she slowly started coming around more to it. And then one day, just randomly, I came to visit, and she would ask, like, how so? You got a job yet? And, you thought about graduate school yet? Okay. And then just randomly out of nowhere, this popped me huge. She said, I hate Brandon Scott, by the way.
Did she really?
What? What? I think
she's following the story.
Yeah, now she's like dropping names and whatnot. She's like, I hate Brandon Scott. I like Ken Dixon. I hate Brandon Scott. Like, that was her way, I guess, of slowly opening up.
Yeah.
And now she comes to every event. Like, after she won an election for judgeship here in the county, she had a longer line of people to meet her than I did at my gimmick table. Like,
right.
Yeah.
You sound a little bitter about that, Joe.
Oh, at one of our shows?
Yeah, I'm out there trying to sell merchandise and whatnot. And more people were coming up to congratulate Judge Joe's mom.
Oh, really?
They could care about
Yeah,
me.
well, you said she probably paroled a lot of those people. They probably felt like they needed to come up and be like, oh, thank you, really,
I love your son. Like, here's a case file number.
Yeah. I love your son, and by the way, thanks for getting me off of those charges.
Yeah.
So she slowly came around to it, and now it's the first thing she brags about to people. But now she brags about it less because she finds her coworkers Google searching me and doesn't like the way that they're looking at some of the pictures.
I'm sure they like what they see. I got to tell you, Joe, that sounds like it's a 80s sitcom episode of the mom. Joe's wrestling,
That whole scenario is great. Like,
it really
I
is.
never knew any of that. Like, that's just so funny to me. That's how she found out.
Yeah, I grew up, like, terrified of her because she was always in a setting where, like, got to break the glass ceiling for women. So she never really, she was never really easy on the guys, especially me being, like, her son and whatnot. She was, like, tough love for me, not so much with my sister, but so I guess I kind of had a little fear of upsetting her, and just even at 23 years of age, seeing her giving me the death stare from
while you were in the ring, right?
While I was walking the ramp was enough to, like, pull me back to 6 years old. Like, oh shit. I can't get tagged in. Like, I can't do any of this.
Wow, that's well. You mentioned not having the butterflies before GCW and some other great opportunities that you've had. I want to ask you more about that, but I think we got to pause for a little bit of station identification here, and we'll be right back with our special guest, Joe Keys.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
All right, we are back here, the MCW Cast, with Joe Keys, our guest, and Larry and Dan. Glad to have you here today. Now, Joe, before the break, you were leading us through your journey here to MCW. And Dan, you had mentioned Joe enjoying some success now and getting a push out there. And I want to talk a little bit about your path on the independent circuit.
Okay.
Where are some places you've worked? Where are some places you'd still like to work? Favorite places, that kind of thing.
Right. So I guess the next leg of my career starting MCW, Rob and I And some of the other guys, the younger guys at the time, would head up to CZW on Wednesday to do the Dojo Wars. And Lio had told us, like, that's how he got noticed by DJ, because he would go up. And I remember when he was staying with me in my Towson apartment, him and Patrick would go up there on a Wednesday and come back, and Patrick would be all pissed off because DJ Hyde gives like some crappy advice or whatnot, and Patrick would rant and probably call you at 12:30 in the morning.
He'd call RJ too.
Yeah. Well, RJ eventually told him to stop calling, and so then they went to you.
Yeah.
But I went up there with Lio once, and I was still new. I was like less than a year in. I was just grossly unprepared. I didn't know what I was getting into. Like, this is actual wrestlers outside of the MCW bubble. And DJ just verbally brutalized me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not coming back here for a while at least. And then probably another year I went back there when I had more experience underneath me and I could like confidently hold myself. But this time I had like my crutch, my safety crutch. I had Rob with me. And Rob doesn't care about anything. Rob just does this for fun, and he thinks the whole like walking along in eggshells in the locker room is just hysterical to him. So he would like go up to Drew Gulak and just start messing with Drew right off the bat. And if anybody knows Drew in a personal sense, he's really like serious and intimidating. And Rob just went up to him and just started messing with him. So Drew came back after like 2 matches in. He's like loud and huffy. He's like, if anybody uses a chin lock again, you're not allowed back here. And Rob just jumps up in front of like 40 people. Like, well, Drew, that's my finisher, man. What am I supposed to do? I don't know anything else. Like, everyone got quiet and staring at Rob, and Rob's standing there with that goofy look on his face, like,
Right. Yeah.
and Drew just kind of walks out. And where we were doing the Dojo Wars, it was pretty much the size of this back area. Like the locker
I remember, yep.
The locker room had probably 30 to 40 dudes in this area smaller than this studio. And of course, people would just get loud and rowdy and talk, and Drew would kick the door back in. And he's like, I need everyone to shut the hell up. We're trying to film out there. And everyone gets quiet. And here's Rob popping up. It's like, well, aren't wrestlers like birds? If you just turn the lights off, they all go to sleep. And everyone again gets quiet. And there's Rob like... And then Drew just shuts the door and leaves. And then Rob follows him and was like, wait, I need to answer to that. But he didn't realize the door that he opens up, it just opens up to where they were filming. So there's some segment out there where during, I don't know, some Kid Osborne match or whatnot, Rob just burst out the door. I need an answer to that.
I can totally see
walks
him
back
doing
in the
that.
door.
Well, it's something real quick before we get off of this real quick. You mentioned that DJ just verbally abused you or was brutally, verbal towards you. And earlier you had mentioned that your Wikipedia says that you were trained by DJ Hyde and Drew Gulak, and I kind of groaned when you said that. But go back to that. What exactly would DJ do to you? Do you remember? Is it even...
I can remember bullet points because getting talked at by DJ was like usually an hour affair. And me being new and didn't want to piss anybody off, I would just sit there and, yes, sir, okay, you're right. But that would last for like 60 minutes. But the bullet points that I remember is, you look at the ceiling. Whenever you do a DJ Hyde impression, you got to do the eyes. So I mean, you could be good. I wouldn't know. You train at MCW.
Oh my gosh.
But if you came here, I can make you great. That's just on you. I mean, I know Danny and RJ and Dean personally. I've known them for years. And they can only get you so far. But me, I can get you anywhere. I can call Terry Taylor right now and have you try out tomorrow. Stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. All the time.
He's the new age Barry Horowitz. He like patting himself on.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're spot on with the looking at the ceiling.
Yeah.
You're spot on with that. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of give a little context because when you said that earlier, I kind of groaned because I heard a couple of other people that have DJ as like their trainer. If you follow their but we've got you on the cast so you can address it and we know where you really came from.
Yeah, so I did the Dojo Wars for about a year, and that's where the online sites get the DJ Hyde training. DJ Hyde never trained me. I trained a little bit under Drew Gulak, but it wasn't at CZW because shortly after Rob and I started the Dojo Wars, I believe it was Kimberly, because we were with her, McBride, and the Kings of Maryland.
That's right.
faction.
Right.
She was the grand champion at Chikara, and she had told Rob and I, like, Quack is looking for a tag team, and I think you guys should try out. So Rob and I tried out. And at first, Rob and I didn't make it because Quack had in mind like an idea for like some spooky gimmick or whatnot. But Rob and I just went up there, and Rob was his crazy personality, and I did all the wrestling. But everybody else was just trying to do like stupid moves and something to impress Quackenbush.
Or like his type of because
Yeah.
I've always admired what Mike did with Chikara. You know, a lot of your hardcore wrestling, and you know, people are like, oh, it's like comic book, but he has a niche, man. He created a really unique niche, and as a promoter, I've always admired Mike for that. Yeah. Like, he takes a lot of flack from some people that just that's not their thing.
Right.
But he created a very neat niche, and I from a promoter, creator, I always admired that about what he did. It was something, so it was definitely like a unique, like you said, you're kind of like cartoonish and very much like comic bookish.
He's his genre, I guess the way he would describe Chikara is a comic book brought to life.
Right.
But nonetheless, as a wrestler trying to gain experience.
Absolutely. He has,
the MCW bubble.
Absolutely. He was, you know, Chikara was very well known. It was, you know, there was a lot of people that came from there. When I say what I'm saying, it's not in a negative way at all. Right. It's in a very admirable way that I admired it and liked it. So what I'm saying, it shouldn't be taken as me downing. I'm saying it is very much like, from the outside, was like, man, it's really, I admired what he did from a promoter myself, and was like, I always thought what he created, it was different. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a different.
I always will think that Mike Quackenbush was a fantastic asset to independent wrestling and independent wrestlers. Anybody that's got an opportunity to train under him or learn from him, he's a gold mine in his own mindset, in his own asset. And Rob and I were lucky enough to learn under him for a better part of 2 years, and with Drew Gulak at the same time before he got signed to NXT. And training with Mike, it was lucha stuff for the most part, but it was just different ways of telling a story, different ways of putting a match together, and it really opened my mind up to, like, oh, there's different ways to put on a wrestling event or a wrestling match outside of what we've always done here.
Right.
And just having that realm, that experience, like, made me a more well-rounded performer, more well-rounded wrestler. I got to wrestle people that were better than me. I got to wrestle Drew Gulak on training practices for like 30 minutes at a time. I was like, wow, this guy is incredible. Like, I'm not even wrestling him. He's wrestling himself using me.
Yeah.
And then I'd wrestle Quack and it'd be the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus, this is the standard to get to. Like, this is something to live up to. And that's when it hit me, like, I need more experience than what Dean and RJ can provide. I think in their own mindset that Dean and RJ are fantastic wrestlers and great mindsets, but they can only know so much.
Right.
Well, and it's also something, and that's why I've always, to me, I've always, like, what we've done has always worked for people, and we have, you know, our own legacy of people we've helped, but I always stayed with that traditional style, because essentially we're more like a traditional style and traditional teaching psychology and basics, because I think to be well-rounded, you need to get those different styles, like the Chikara style, and figure it out, and, you know, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and CCW, you know what I mean, that has, you know, a more, but you can, if you're to me, I've always seen it as, and I don't think it's ever not worked out, like, if you're a hungry performer that wants to get, you know, there's students that come in, and there's some students that and it's always been this way, and I'm like, look, some people you're going to sign up, you're going to learn to wrestle, and you're going to be someone that's comfortable just being an independent wrestler.
Right.
What I've always said to you guys, I always say you either, or you want to wrestle at WrestleMania.
Right.
Obviously, I always want the people that want to wrestle at WrestleMania. Or New Japan, or, you know, they want the big stage. Right. So, like, if you're going to go get that other seasoning and those other styles, if you're hungry and you want that, like you did, like Lio did, and like most people that have gone on to the, and gone on to really advance their careers, you chase those other styles.
Right.
Yeah, essentially, there's almost like a blueprint. There's almost a blueprint to this game to get to the point.
To get to that point.
Yeah,
and one of them in that rungs of that ladder is getting out to these other indies that have that exposure, the Beyond Wrestling, the Pro Wrestling Guerrillas, the Chikaras, the CCWs, and getting and learning those styles and getting in and getting over with those promotions, and that's the blueprint.
Yeah, learning the personalities, the other people in the locker room, the veterans that maybe you didn't know, this veteran didn't want you sitting, near their stuff or something, those experiences. So, when we're talking about your journey, your blueprint, Fundamentals MCW, branched out and did a little Dojo Wars action with CZW, started training with Quackenbush and Gulak and Chikara. What was next for Joe Keys after you got those legs of the journey under your feet?
So, after about 2 years at Chikara, there came to a point, because ultimately Quackenbush has a school to run. So he's advancing students all the time, and it got to the point where I wasn't learning anything new there, and there were new students that were moving up they had to relearn everything that I had relearned, and so I wasn't going to learn anything new anymore. I was just going up there and getting beat up by their new clumsy kids. And right around that time, luckily for me, is when Joey showed up around here, and now there was like a whole new mindset to wrestling that just kind of blew me away.
Joey Matthews.
Yeah, Joey Matthews.
Joey Mercury.
Mercury, yeah.
Yes.
And you can learn all the moves, all the fundamentals and what, but like how to put it together, how to put a wrestling show together. Joey had it perfected. Yeah. And I didn't really start grasping professional wrestling until I was under his tutelage for the better part of I'd say 2 years, like not just here at MCW. And I was with Joey on the Joey took a liking to a couple people, really took a liking to, and the first two guys that he didn't want us to tell you then, but like you and Dante, like he wanted you to think he hated you. Yeah, he did. He was very good at that.
Yeah. So, but the reality was, so he took a liking to you guys specifically.
Right. And Joey, for a while, was the head trainer at Ring of Honor, and that's ultimately where I met Gresham. I knew of Gresham, and I'd met him in passing before, but got to know him on a personal level and like his mindset. And John has had his own background. Like, he's never been to WWE, but he spent time in Japan. He spent time in Germany and UK.
Right, different countries. He's been, Yeah.
So he's
world traveled.
He's one of those journeyman world travelers.
One of the last of them.
That without that national exposure, say, because he wasn't in like TNA or WWE, that made a name for himself through just being a journeyman, like world traveler.
Right.
So they kind of made a name for himself without that.
So John eventually got the role as the head trainer for the Ring of Honor school. And at the time, Ring of Honor was going through a transition, I guess, on the creative side, because the Bucks were gone and Cody was gone. And
I was gone. No, I'm kidding.
Larry was gone. Somehow they didn't go back for it.
Oh, come on.
And it's just like, all right, we kind of have to create the company over from the ground up. We got to bring in new people. We got to make new stars. And that year after, it was 2019, Ring of Honor took a hurting. Like, not just attendance, but popularity-wise. Like, it was cool to make fun of Ring of Honor at the time, which I never understood.
That was right when the Bucks and
scapegoating. The scapegoating is what it is.
Fad. People. They lost a lot of talent.
They did. They lost all their big names at the time, but the show's got to go on, and Ring of Honor kept putting on shows, and the shows were fantastic.
Absolutely.
They were wonderful shows, but people just...
Perception.
They think this is Ring of Honor sans the Bullet Club, so I don't know, what is it? And then they'll pick out the lowest members on the roster and be like, this is what Ring of Honor is now.
Right.
It's unfair to those guys. Like, no.
Really unfair, and that's that like people jump on the bandwagon too, but the perception... the perception was at that time, it's like, oh, geez, that the Ring of Honor is like yesterday's news because all these stars left at one time. When the reality was, it was just about another person making a very, very, very big financial investment into something else starting.
I think it comes around to 2020 and COVID time, and the world shut down. And by we, I mean Dante and myself, at first, were scheduled to start making regular appearances for the company in 2020, and essentially the same...
Right before everything shut down.
Yeah, and essentially the same getup we're doing now, like the young boy gimmick. And just to reiterate, the prospect gimmick that Dante and I and Ken Dixon and Eric Martin are doing, if people are familiar with the New Japan Young Lion system, they stripped the personalities down to just bare bone. You make a create a wrestler on like WWE 2K, whatever, and just click accept all the way through in the gear, and you get basic black, basic everything, and then wrestle a match with just the basics and make it worthwhile and entertaining. Then you can change stuff up as you go along, but you know how to get the best quality match out of nothing. And that's what Dante and I were going to be. And everything shut down. And we didn't know if there was going to be plans for us anymore. We didn't know, is this the route we want to stick with? Do we want to be glorified ring crew? What do we want to do? And our first set of tapings back, we did the bubble and whatnot. We, and by we, I mean me, Dante, Dixon, Eric, we weren't even on it. We just showed up and did ring crew, and we weren't even a second thought. And so we're sitting there like pouty and grouchy, like, all right, what connections do we have in Orlando? Who do we know in Jacksonville? Who do we know in Nashville?
Because the writing's on the wall. This ain't going nowhere. We're just gonna.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not here to set up your ring. I'm sorry. And we expressed these grievances to John, and we said, John, we're just getting left in the dust here, man. And I think you know it too. And John kind of looked at us and he said, I know, and that's about to change. Because I just won the pure title, and now I'm going into creative. Maybe not those exact words.
Yeah, you make him sound like a boss. Like you make him like, I'm going to the pure title, I'm going into creative.
But he won the pure title, and now he had some authority, and one of the first things he did is, I want my dojo guys represented, and I want them on TV, and I want them to get a spot. They deserve it, they need it, and... like, the company needs it. And we were, again, when I say we, I mean me, Dante, Ken, and Eric. I'm not going to reestablish that every time. But we were given that opportunity, and we killed it, all four of us, and we didn't look back. And that ultimately led to the match I had with John, which just aired last week. And I forget who I was talking to. I think it was Made in Dean. It's like everybody has like that breakout match where they reach the standard of recognition that they should be receiving. With Patrick, it was his first NXT takeover. People realized he was the real deal. Lio, I can't remember what Lio was. Lio was just always, just gradually broke out more and more and got his own recognition. But for me, that was that Gresham match where...
I think for Lio was probably the tournament that when he won the
top prospect, yeah.
And he had some really solid matches, and people were like, it's when you started to see a lot of buzz on him.
Yeah, they're like, this is the guy and whatnot. So for me, it was definitely this Gresham match, and it wouldn't have happened if John didn't go to bat.
Right.
Didn't go to bat for us.
But you guys, that's the whole thing, and that's all what it takes in wrestling. But you still, you showed up for a long time. You did the work. You put the work, and he saw and you earned that respect from him to where he was like, no, these guys need a door opened.
Yeah.
And he opened that door for you.
He did.
You know what I mean? And and that's what it's about. But if you hadn't shown up, if you hadn't earned that respect, if you hadn't shown him you were serious, when you were having that moment of like, maybe we should just go. His advice probably would have been like, yeah, maybe you guys should try something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in other words, he wouldn't, like, what he did for you is he put his name on the line.
Yes.
and he put his name on the line for you guys. So if you hadn't earned that, he wouldn't have put his name on the line if you would have just, oh, well, we need these guys to put up the ring the next time, or we need these guys to be lapdogs. He wouldn't have put his name on you. He put his name on you because you earned that from him.
There's other people that show up to set up the ring, and he doesn't put his name out there for everyone. But it's wrestling. Nobody gets anywhere on their own.
Right, right.
That match was phenomenal. What did he tapped you with? What was it? A bridging hammerlock, or
It's just a grounded hammerlock.
it was so basic, but it was so effective and so believable that I'm going to tap out if someone gets my arm compromised like that, just to put it over here on the cast. It was phenomenal.
The great thing with John is he'll take things that are seen as rudimentary moves and makes them special or important, even in a wrestler mindset, like what we would view as a simple hammerlock.
Mm-hmm.
If you go and put your friend in a hammerlock and put some weight on it, you can tear a guy's shoulder out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. But nobody realizes that until they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was. And I felt it. And I didn't want to be in there much longer than I was or had to have been. That's the dumpy thing about submissions. Guys get excited and they'll put that thing on you when you're just kind of laying there.
Yeah.
RJ would do it all the time. I know he's not here, but he put that bruised mission on, and he would sit back because he would feel it, and then he'd start yelling, and I'm like, okay, I can't breathe. I can't breathe for real. RJ, Bruiser, you're killing me, man. Stop. And he's like, yeah, that's right. Find the camera guy. So it was just the whole experience, not just the match itself, but the promo beforehand, where I dedicated it to RJ. Probably the best I've ever done. Because it was real. It was real.
Yeah.
It felt real.
The
promo itself, I mean, the match had a lot of buzz, but the promo had buzz. Like, I saw on social media being shared in the week leading up to it, and, just people putting over it, and I watched it. I felt that,
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah, and that's what I could tell. So I had a couple people, like, share it with me, like, send it to me on Messenger, and was like, hey, did you see this? So that's a moment, too, like, I'm glad you brought it up. Kind of like a broke out promo, and like Ring of Honor featured it, and they sent it out, and featured it separately. What kind of feedback did you get, like, internally from people in Ring of Honor about that promo?
Like some of the at the time of the recording, because we do the promo tapings after we do the wrestling. It's the last day of our bubble, and people just need to get out.
Right, so they're tired and frustrated.
They're tired, and they're like...
But after it aired, the presentation, when it went out, did you get a lot of good feedback?
Fantastic reception. Not just from, like, my close friends and whatnot, but, like, random roster members, like, upper roster members would reach out and say that was fantastic stuff. Probably the best on the programming all year or whatnot. Which was great for, like, my ego, but then at the same sense, like, Christ, now I gotta live up to this standard every time.
Well, like you said, it was real. Like,
right.
It was real, and I think any of us knew, it was real.
Right.
I had heard that, like, even RJ's family saw it.
Yeah.
And were, like, touched by it. So, and for all of us that have, watching that promo, I was like, there's times, it's been a couple months that we think, watching that promo, I was like, okay, I'm not over this.
Oh, yeah. 100%, yeah.
Like, I watched the promo and was like, all right, as I'm starting to get choked up. Like,
Yeah.
All right, I'm not over this yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I watched it in its entirety for the first time probably like 2 weeks before it aired, or like the match happened. And I was holding it. Because I was like, I was there. I know what's going to happen. Then they started flashing the pictures of RJ.
I know, yeah.
That's where it started getting me.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this with Kevin Eck last week, and about the tribute that Ring of Honor did for RJ, even for not being a roster guy there. His influence was felt, and you are a perfect example of the influence that he had in a promotion that was one he didn't work for. So it's a testament to that.
Well, majority of the new crop coming up in Ring of Honor, like myself, Dixon Dante, Eric, SOS, even Dak Draper and Brian Johnson, even though they were more limited than the first guys had listed, they all had some sort of influence by RJ on them. Everyone was taken aback with his passing. It kind of blew my mind, the amount of reach that RJ had, not just in the Baltimore area, but the wrestling community itself. He was great man. That won't be forgotten.
Well, I mean, this whole cast is his legacy. You know,
Right.
this room that we're in is where it came to you, Dan, that we're going to have RJ live on.
Yeah, after we did that show, I think we've told the story before, but it's kind of for everything that happened and then us doing the show afterwards, and kind of was like, yeah, we need to re-engage with our fans. And,
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to run for mayor and take his spot. Man, I don't know if anybody can take that spot, that RJ running for mayor spot.
Yeah.
Oh man, people would gravitate towards him.
Oh yeah.
You didn't have to do anything. People just follow him. I remember people would follow him. There was one incident, Shamrock Cup. I think it was 2019. There was a drunken fan that was getting thrown out the building for whatever reason. Well, you could probably.
Well, he's drunk.
He was drunk and getting rowdy.
Belligerent.
And he was on the outside. And of course, everybody followed him. And he's standing there and he's swearing. He's like, I just need one person to fight. That's all I need. And RJ just stands through the crowd like he'd just gotten released from the hospital 2 weeks ago. And he's like, I'll fight your ass. And then nobody was going to break this up. You got some giant fans. You got like Big Will and Charles standing there.
Yeah.
There's RJ like, I'll fight you. And people are like, oh, RJ's going to kill this guy. No, you can't let this happen. Hold on.
And he totally would have, too.
Man. But this is the legacy that man had. Like,
Yeah, he was definitely larger than life
yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Well, you know, Joe, you to kind of keep us on target here, you've been talking a lot about this journey.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been able to balance, you know, your personal life with, you know, breaking through that glass ceiling and getting your name out there all over the place? How's that been going for you over these past 8 years?
Barely. It's almost cliche. People say, oh, you got to make sacrifices and whatnot. You hear it until you have to do it. There's many social events and I guess friendships that have fizzled out because I couldn't be there or couldn't see them as much as I wanted to, but the payoff in the end is better for me. Like I remember any friend of mine who on their own account went to one of my wrestling events. I remember that and I treasure that. I cherish that. And I won't forget them for that. But it's as like I'm getting more popular and on Ring of Honor and whatnot. I have people who I haven't talked to in years go, hey man, I'm supporting your wrestling stuff. And I'm like, hey, how many events have you gone to? And it's like, oh, well, if you got any tickets laying around, you know. That's
I mean, you know what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah.
Listen, I get, you know, I've been doing this stuff for so long, and to me that's the most irritating and infuriating is I'll have people reach out to me that haven't talked to me or called me in 15 years.
Yeah.
Asked how I'm doing, and they'll send me a message on Facebook. I graduated high school with them, and like, oh, Dan, man, hey, you got, you know, Ric Flair coming into this show, man.
Where it's going.
Hey, could I get 9 tickets? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know, and
Sure.
I haven't heard from you in 15 years. Do you know how much I'm paying Ric Flair to show up?
Yeah.
Like, and then, oh, I think it's so awesome. I want to support what you do. Can I get a bunch of free tickets?
Right. I want to support you.
I want to support you and support what you're doing. But my response is I won't do this, but you'll know if you'll get this response. People see this, what I think of you, because you've probably gotten the response. I'll usually respond and say this. I'll say, hey, just out of curiosity, if I owned a Jiffy Lube and you haven't talked to me in 10 years, would you just email me asking for a free oil change? That's my response.
Yeah. 100%.
And usually they don't respond back to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you haven't called me in 10 years. You know what I mean? I got a show that I'm producing that's probably costing $35,000 to put on. And you're just reaching up, hey, man, I really want to support what you're doing. Can I get a couple $100 worth of tickets for free?
Yeah. You know, that's interesting. You mentioned one of the challenges of balancing this is like almost balancing your celebrity. As you're starting to kind of get more and more of a thing, a deal, you're going to have more and more people that all of a sudden randomly like, hey, I want to come to Ring of Honor. Like, they didn't know it existed, before.
I only advertise it on all my social media like every week, so they know,
Right.
It's there. But yeah, just over time, it's more popular I got in wrestling, the more bookings I was able to get and the more opportunities opened up. I don't have weekends to go get trashed in the city or whatever my friends were doing at the time. So those bridges kind of fizzled out, and that's fine with me. They weren't really friends to begin with if they couldn't support what I'm doing.
Sure.
Professionally, to my parents' liking, I did get a science job just outside wrestling. I currently make vaccines for a company in near BWI, including some of these COVID vaccines people are trying to get their hands on. Yes, thanks, Larry.
Yeah. I figured that. That's a little background.
And it works out perfectly. My shift is Monday to Thursday, and I work in the morning for 10 hours, so that just leaves all my weekends open to go wrestling. But with the world shut down, I'm not going anywhere except for the ROH bubble. And my bosses are lenient. They're like, yeah, just put in the time you need off and just be here when we need you. And they're fine with it. So I have no problems professionally, work life and wrestling life, which isn't always the case with everyone. Definitely not. Yeah. Before then, I was working a part-time job, and I wouldn't accept a full-time job because they'd be like, we need you to work some weekends, and I would turn it down, which, me at the time, kicking myself in the ass, like, this is, like, benefits and full-time money, and you're turning it down so you could go, down to Winston-Salem on a Sunday or a Saturday to wrestle for $50. Like, are you stupid? But in retrospect, it paid off.
Hey, man, I was there. I was 19, 20 years old, and I was working in the kitchen at Chuck E. Cheese. And they wanted, and I was offered a management job, but I would have had to work weekends. I was like, no way, brother. Yeah. No way. And I remember my dad was like, are you serious? You know what I mean? And I was like, no way, man. They want me to work weekends. I got to wrestle.
We've all
been there.
Through that. We definitely.
But Joe, like you said, at the end of the day, it's a little bit more fulfilling. Being the manager of a Chuck E. Cheese, that would have been a nice chunk of change coming your way. And
there was nothing stopped. I was the same way. I mean, look, if I had taken that management of Chuck E. Cheese job, we may not be here now.
100%. 100%.
When you worked at Chuck E. Cheese, did Chuck E. Cheese come out to the Macho Man's music? Because I took my youngest son to Chuck E. Cheese when he was little, about 2 years old, and Chuck E. Cheese, the stuffed mouse, comes out onto the stage to Macho Man's music, and I popped so hard for it.
I don't remember if it came out to Macho Man's music or not. I mean, I know
if that was just a local thing, or if that was
that may have been that may have been a local thing. That may have been a local thing.
I think so, for baby.
But it's that crossover to wrestling life.
Of course.
Life, the real sphere. There's a lot
that theme is applicable for everybody.
We did because at the time I worked there we filmed a lot of stuff. Gosh, I got them on VHS tapes where we would dress up in the Chucky outfit and attack people in the ball crawl and have wrestling matches. I filmed, with my other buddies that were into wrestling at the time, and guys that I worked with. We found, and we actually somewhere. I mean, they probably make great YouTube videos now.
I'm thinking Blast from the Past.
Yeah,
let's
we were dressed up in the Chuck E. Cheese outfit in the ball crawl, dropping elbows.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I would love to see it, and I think that we should get it for one of the Blast from the Past because I'm trying to envision that in a young Corporal Punishment or the Comet, dressed up as Chuck E. Cheese. That sounds like a good piece of business. Joe, I want to know, with everything that's going on for you, wonderful showing on TV last week with Jonathan Gresham. What is next for Joe Keys? Where are you going?
I'm trying to get paid now.
I know that's right. First and foremost, right?
I would like to stop going to a full-time job every week.
Yeah.
And just be able to focus on wrestling. But that's a lot easier said than done. I don't know what goes into that business side. And, as cliche as it sounds, just show up and work hard and hope someone notices and it pays off in the end.
Well, I think I can say, again, being pretty experienced as a promoter and watching guys, you're right there under what I guess would be called that glass ceiling or referred to as that glass ceiling. So I think you should obviously you know this, like you keep doing what you're doing, and obviously, following the guidance of a guy like John that's giving you the guidance now, and like getting the showings. I think personally, you're having that breakout moment with that promo and the match with John. Mm-hmm. I think you're probably closer than you think to, opportunities falling in place for you. Like, you're right there. You see there's memes and always online. You ever seen the memes where like they're showing like a guy digging for diamonds, and he's like, he doesn't realize, but it's like right there, and he stops and quits, and he's only got like a little tiny bit of dirt to get through, a whole pile of diamonds. You know what I mean? But that's the truth about what people quit right before they do all the, like, you've spent now the last, to 2014, so like 7 years in the grind, grinding. I think you're probably closer to opportunities breaking out for you, major opportunities breaking out for you than you realize. Yeah. Just me personally.
It happens at different times for different people. I don't want to stay on it too long, but I'll tell you this much, just to give you a little blast from the past that you probably won't remember. One of the times when I was with ROH, you and Ken and Lio and Patrick and a couple other guys all came down to, help out with the ring. Same old story, help out with the ring. Right. And Kevin Kelly called me aside and he said, "Hey, Larry, we're doing this new thing with Michael Elgin, and we need one of these guys. You know them all. Like, get one of them. Just make sure he's not too big, because Elgin's short, and we don't want to make him look shorter than." So
I remember who they picked.
Well, I looked at you all. This was like one time that they asked me to do something of this nature, basically because of my legacy with MCW, knowing that I knew the guys, and I was like, well, I'd love to see whether you guys get this, but you over here, you're the shortest one, so go see Kevin Kelly because they're going to do something with you. But at the time, as much as I would love to have been like, all of them, let's do something with all of them, we'll figure it out, it just wasn't the time then. But here we are now, and it is your time, as Dan alluded to. And also, I think right now it's time for us to...
It's your favorite part, isn't it?
That's right. It's time for us to talk about some other indies and what's going on the scene. And that means we're going to throw it to General Manager of MCW Pro, Phil Stamper, to fill us in for the Indie Roundup.
Hey everybody, my name is Phil Stamper. I'm so excited to be back with you this week talking about the world of independent wrestling. So much has happened. Here I'm in like mission control. You need to see the setup. I have 2 screens, so you're seeing me probably looking left to right just to try to gather everything. And I have things on like half screens right now just to sort it all, because so much has happened in this last week. And actually the first thing I found out about because of Larry Legend. Larry Legend posted this on Twitter, tagged me in it, let me know that Pro Wrestling Illustrated is sponsoring an Iron Person match. It's man and the woman, so I'm going to say Iron Person match. Typical Iron Man rules. Iron Person match between Tony Deppen and Trish Adora. Now, Tony Deppen recently made some headlines in the world of professional wrestling, and I mean the entire world of professional wrestling, for having the 3rd longest match in professional wrestling history at 2 hours long. That's right, a straight 2 hours match was him and Jordan Oliver, and now on February 14th, this coming Sunday, we'll be going directly into one-on-one action in an Iron Person match against Trish Adora. And as far as anybody knows, it's the first time there's ever been an hour-long Iron Person match that's also been intergender. So really exciting to make a footnote in the world of not only professional wrestling, but the world of professional wrestling history. So I'm excited, looking forward to it. This is courtesy of Beyond Wrestling. It's going to be available on the Beyond Wrestling YouTube page. So check that out. Again, Beyond Wrestling, their YouTube page. Tony Deppen versus Trish Adora. It's going to be an absolute banger of a match. Also exciting news, IWTV. I talked about them last week. I started to look at, well, if I'm going to be bringing you news about the world of professional wrestling, let me tell you about how you can find footage of great professional wrestling action that's happening. And IWTV is one of those platforms that can bring that to you, with a number of independent wrestling companies signed up under their banner so that you can stay aware of what's happening with action in independent wrestling. IWTV now has signed an agreement with Pluto TV. Pluto TV is a television streaming service for many people who have cut the cord and they no longer have a cable service, and they're relying on a complete digital solution for everything, for how they get their television service. Pluto TV is one of the largest known options that are out there. Pluto TV has its own wrestling television channel and now has signed an agreement with IWTV to start receiving footage from them. Not their entire library right away. They're going to be rolling in different content. They already have different content. They have Steve Austin's Broken Skull Ranch is on that station. They have footage from like Defy Wrestling in Washington State. But now with getting this agreement with IWTV, they're going to start rotating in stock from different companies under their banner. The first two going to be Beyond Wrestling's Uncharted Territory Season 1, as well as Women's Wrestling Revolution, their entire library. So Pluto TV, again, that's a free app available to stream on Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Chromecast, PlayStation, TiVo, Xfinity, Roku, and so much more available on Pluto TV. So that's really super exciting. Also on IWTV, straight on their website or on their app, again, IWTV.live, or download their app, IWTV. New episodes of Violence X Suffering, as well as episodes of New South Pro Wrestling, Action Clash, and Heavy Metal Wrestling. Then on Wednesday, full events of Paradigm Pro's No Hook 2 and New South Pro. On Thursday, Ohio Wrestling Alliance. I think that's going to be the banger of the week, by the way. I think that's going to be the event to look out for from anything new on IWTV. Then on Friday, I'm probably going to get smacked in the head for this because then there's 2 action wrestling events taking place on Friday out of Georgia, and I love action wrestling, so it's going to be a solid weekend of action. And then on Sunday evening, Valentine's Day, Camp Leapfrog presents a very special episode of Camp Love Frog. I'm looking forward to this. Hey, you might see me there. I'm just saying. Check it out, IWTV.live. Over on Fight TV, Abima, PWA, and Pele Pro on Friday. They're bringing new episodes. And on Saturday, Georgia Independent Pro Wrestling has a brand new event that you can check out over on Fight TV. Also, live events. And what I'm starting to see now that cases are starting to lower in the community, thank goodness, from the big gimmick, that now there's going to be a return of more public events. So live events. Now, it's not going to be like it was right away. Not going to be shoulder to shoulder, and there's still going to be masks required and all that stuff. But more places are starting to open up with public events. So you're starting to see the return of some crowds in some places that had to step away, unfortunately, for a little bit just because of how high some of the case rates were. So WWA4 in Georgia, 127 Pro in Tennessee, both of them returning this coming Thursday. On Friday the 12th, Pro South Wrestling in Alabama, Fighting Evolution Wrestling out of Florida. Action, again, those 2 events in Georgia, Pro Wrestling Phoenix in Nebraska, Resolute Wrestling in Tennessee, Atlas Wrestling Promotion out of Texas. Then on Saturday the 13th, 2 events from Victory Championship Wrestling in Alabama, Revolutionary Wrestling Entertainment and World Class Wrestling Association out of Arkansas. Then out of Florida, we have Coastal Wrestling Federation, Fighting Evolution Wrestling, Generation Championship Wrestling, and Legacy Classic Championship Wrestling, all out of Florida this coming Saturday. In Georgia, Southern Wrestling Association. In Tennessee, the Tennessee Wrestling Association. Out of Texas, the Austin Wrestling Revolution, Promotion 915 and 656 in association with AAA in Odessa, Texas. Metroplex, also out of Texas. And then in Wisconsin. Wisconsin was a state that had stopped all of their public events. Now they're starting to come back very, very slowly. Brew City Wrestling and Wisconsin Pro Wrestling both coming back this coming Saturday in Wisconsin. And then on Sunday, I mentioned Camp Leapfrog. Like I said, check it out, IWTV.live. School of Morton streaming live on their Facebook page out of Chucky, Tennessee. Again, School of Morton from WWE Hall of Famer Ricky Morton. And Heavy Metal Wrestling, brand new event out of San Antonio, Texas. So a lot of action coming your way. And hey, a lot of news just came out of this last week. Who knows what this coming week will bring? Thank you for watching in. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you guys are having a good time. I miss seeing you guys. Like one day I'm going to have to come up. Like all of us are going to have to hang out in person. Like I need a drink. I need like socialization, like in person with people. I can't wait to see you guys. So much is coming up. Actually, this coming Saturday, I'm driving out to Indiana for a pre-taped event for Flophouse Wrestling that'll also be appearing on IWTV. So a lot of things are coming up. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you very, very soon. My name is Phil Stamper.
Engage with the MCW Cast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch for a chance to get your questions answered on a future episode of the cast. Or send us a tweet with the hashtag AskMCWCast.
I gotta tell you, the Indie Roundup just gets better and better week by week, I feel. Phil, thank you so much for filling us in. You know I gotta hit my line. But what about that great news? IWTV now going to be featured on Pluto. Pluto TV, which is one of those apps. It's built into most TVs now. You can go to YouTube, Tubi, Pluto.
But this TV. TV. Our
Yeah, we
TV in
can-
the studio. It's built in. We got a smart TV here.
Well, that's what it is. It's about smart TVs, and I guess the internet is really the smartest way to go. So now you got a lot of the IWTV library going to be streamed on Pluto TV. That's huge.
Right, great for everybody on there. Great for all the platforms on there.
Ring of Honor's matches or Ring of Honor shows are on there, correct, Joe?
I have no idea.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I'm so sorry. All right, well, for our fans, yes, Stir on Pluto. You can find Ring of Honor. There's lots of Ring of Honor content there. There's a lot of other indie wrestling on there, but go to Pluto and you can look for that as well.
That's right, and
So now you know.
And I believe it. I mean, I believe there's some CZW. So I know that you and Rob and Ken used to come up and accompany Lio for some of his first forays with Joey Janela and whatnot. When he first started developing the Blackheart character,
I was part of Leo's match the first time he debuted the Blackheart character, and I don't remember much from the match because I got destroyed through a table by Janela. About halfway through. And I guess it was the first time I experienced like the CZW audience the first time, because everybody always talks about like just how brutal they were and just how nasty they were for no reason. And you know, I was calm at first and I'd gotten desensitized, saw the derogative terms, and I remember Penelope went for a dive off the top onto Rob and I, and we caught her and we staggered back and landed onto one of the tables they had set up just like by chance. The table, because the skate zone at the time was like a tile floor. So
That's right, yeah.
The table just slid across the entire floor. Rob had the majority of Penelope, so he rolled off, and I just laid on the table, and all I heard was like the crowd go, "Ah, this is like," and then I hear them slowly starting to come up. I'm like, what's Lio doing? And I'm laying on this table, and I look, and I see Lio, and he's just making this face at me like, "Oh no." And I look over and I just peep up a little bit and I just see Janela midair like flying across the arena. I just knocked my lights out through this table.
Well, was that not planned? Did Joey just say, "Oh, he's on the table, I'm just going to leap on him"?
Yeah, he just went.
Let me tell you, he's a bad boy.
Yeah, that was around the time too. That was both of them. Both of them probably. That was breakout for probably both of those two.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
they got buzz.
They got
buzz on them.
They were killing each other in those matches. That's the same one where Janela like fell from the rafters through Lio on the ladder.
Yeah.
And was that after Joey did that? Janela did that
off the roof. Jump.
Off the roof.
That was his first match back from jumping off the roof.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Dude, didn't he almost lose a finger?
He almost lost his thumb.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it almost, huh?
He almost lost his life.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That was sick.
It was sick, and I bet you it's going to be on Pluto now.
Yeah.
Another thing, and I really want to ask you about this, Joe. I know we don't have that much time left with you. Phil mentioned the first ever Iron Person match is scheduled. It's coming up, being sponsored by Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
I saw that developed on Twitter, right? That kind of thing just developed.
Yeah, and it's got Deppin and Trisha Adora, the Pan-African Diaspora World Champion. I have a hard time with that word. Pan-African Diaspora World Champion. She's going to be defending it, I think, against Deppin. But how do you feel about that? A woman, a strong champion of a woman fighting a man in an hour-long Iron Person match. How do you feel about that?
For me, with intergender wrestling, you have to look at the components going in. And this one, I feel, is an even matchup because Trish is a stronger, larger woman than most women. And Tony, nothing against Tony. Tony is not that large of an individual and is about the same size as Trish. So you have two even-sized fighters going into this match. What a lot of people won't consider is 60 minutes is a long time to wrestle. 10 minutes is a long time. 15 minutes is exhausting. 60 minutes is... at that point, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Like if you are not...
And holding your attention. Like for me, I mean, obviously been involved in wrestling a long time, been a fan even longer. For me, one of the most memorable, Shawn and Brett from the main event of WrestleMania. And that was tough to hold my attention. So, you know what I mean? Just from a holding attention span, to me, that's tough. Shawn and Brett, and I personally think they're probably two of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
And I think those set aside the fact it's an intergender, just doing that, I think it can either be really good or it can kind of expose, you know what I mean, expose weaknesses, you know, and just me. I don't know. I think it's a risk, personally, doing it.
Well, we talked about this before the show started, Dan, about the number of views on intergender matches that you were talking about.
Yeah, and absolutely. That. So there's definitely interest because obviously, you know, I get all the analytics on the MCW YouTube page. And get all the different analytics. I pay attention to that, what people are watching. And, you know, intergender wrestling is like one of it's the second most searched term on the MCW YouTube page behind Lio Rush. And has been for a while. Leo's got a lot of buzz coming off of, you know, obviously we got a ton of Lio matches on our page. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's coming off WWE and the MTV and, you know, getting his name out there. But but intergender wrestling for a while is always one of the top search terms on our page where people go into the MCW YouTube page, look for intergender matches, which we have some, you know, Scarlett Bordeaux did a couple intergender matches. Right. So it's definitely
TV champion.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, something interesting, but the whole 60-person or 60-man, whatever, the whole Iron Man match concept, to me, it's tough. It's tough to do and hold people's attention and be good.
Well, I just want to say, I believe that in a lot of ways, one of the companies I'm associated with, ICW No Holds Barred, in November, they just did the first ever Iron Man death match. And it actually went off pretty well. It was
they went 60 minutes.
They went 60 minutes. It was not like critically panned. People weren't like this was, you know, crappy. And then subsequently, we talked about that Fight Forever event that happened last weekend, streamed on YouTube. Deppen and Jordan Oliver went 2 hours.
Right, they did 2 hours.
So I feel like a trend maybe of like, hey, we really don't have that much content to enjoy the way we used to. So now that you're sitting at home, let's just give you overdoses of everything and try and see what sticks on the wall, you know?
And the girl that's in that.
Trish.
I've just kind of started hearing a buzz about her. Was she in the Ring of Honor dojo? Was she training?
She was.
What's her background?
I don't know much about her.
I know she's from the DC area. I know that. She calls her finishing move the lariat.
She calls it Lariat Tubman.
Lariat Tubman. Instead of that's her deal. Instead of Harriet, Lariat Tubman.
Good.
Oh, dude,
that's good.
It's one of the best things I heard. You know, so. Yeah. I am looking forward to it. And Dan, you hit the nail on the head. I'm going to leave you with this, Joe. That all happened very organically just by Tony Deppen tweeting out, I want to do an intergender Iron Man match. Like, I don't know if he really was going into business for himself.
He was just tweeting.
He was just tweeting it.
Like a rhetorical.
Just a rhetorical tweet. So, you know, I see you active, Cup of Joe Keys. You know, I see you up there active, but never underestimate the power of the people and just, you know, of course we talked about Lio maybe not saying the right things on that, but it can be a very powerful tool to get things done. Like, I couldn't believe how quickly.
And when is that? That's happening soon.
It's on Valentine's Day. I don't know if they're doing it on Valentine's Day. I'm not sure if it's live. I don't really know the details. Phil, if you mentioned it to us and I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, but it will stream on Valentine's Day on IWTV.
Well, I tell you what, just because of the talk and the way and we've talked, I'll probably watch it and I'll probably check it out just out of curiosity. So if that's what they do, if they multiply that and create that curiosity, it could end up being good for both of them, just for the exposure, and may get them both noticed.
Yeah,
obviously.
And if GCW or whoever puts that 2-hour match up, I'll take a look at that because I've heard mixed reviews about the 2-hour match that happened at Fight Forever, but
that's tough, man.
Yeah, an hour or 2 hours is wild.
I think they have it up on YouTube because that's where they stream their content now. GCW.
Oh, is the event up? I believe so. Okay, so I'll take a look at that maybe tonight before I go to bed. But Joe, we wanna thank you for joining us here on the cast.
Yeah, thank you.
Being around you guys and just shooting stuff at the wall and hopefully get back to actual wrestling in this building.
We're working on it, man. We're working on it. I think we're gonna. We're here. There's a lot like the last week or so. we heard like West Virginia. It sounds like West Virginia in the next 30 days or so may be opening up to larger events like weddings and funerals and stuff like that. It sounds so. It sounds like West Virginia and also Delaware. We did hear from the Delaware Commission that they're getting ready to kind of open things back up, and obviously they're going to be restricted events at first. So I'm hoping, however, talking with the commission this past week, it seems like they're moving the goalpost back where they were saying probably mid to late spring, and the most recent conversation was like, well, maybe spring or possibly fall. And I'm like, but hopefully if Delaware, West Virginia, and some surrounding states start to open, I think it's just like anything. No one wants to be first. And one thing with the athletic commission in Maryland and Pat Pinnell, I've known him a long time. I have respect for him and I understand his position. Safety and, that's obviously a concern. But I think if we start getting other states around us, which it sounds like is starting to happen, that they have some limited events, hopefully, it'll be on the horizon, and we may end up going to Delaware or West Virginia first. The first MCW show back may not be in Maryland, but
we have a history in working in both of those states. So.
Paw, Martinsburg, Harrington.
Paw was always one of my favorite places.
Just to say it, Paw.
But believe me, we're all kind of fatigued and we're all ready. So as soon as we can, as soon as we can have people in the MCW arena again, we're gonna have them. It's just we gotta play by the rules.
Gotta play by the rules. We don't want Pat Pinella dropping that hammer on us.
No,
on our wallets.
Yeah,
So. All right, well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us here, 4th episode of the MCW Cast. You want to tell us about I know I've put over your social media, but tell the folks where they can follow you and support you even more.
Fantastic. You can follow me on Twitter at Cup of Joe Keys. I don't know if there's numbers after that. I think it's just at Cup of Joe Keys, and that's the same for Instagram as well.
Why don't you go ahead and give them your OnlyFans site?
Do you have an OnlyFans?
No, do you really?
No, I don't have an
If you would have started giving... You would have just turned that rib around on me if you would have said, "Oh, check us out."
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah, you would.
I was just kidding.
I think you could have an OnlyFans just for that hair. Honestly, that beautiful hair.
I don't want that kind of heat from your mom.
Oh yeah, right, the judge, right?
I don't need a Hartford County judge pissed off at me.
All right, well, to bring this back in, speaking of Cup of Joe, remember the way you can support the MCW Cast.
That's right.
Is through Buy Me a Coffee. It's MCW Cast, yeah.
Yep, buy me a coffee
/MCW Cast.
/MCW Cast. Exactly. We're going to be taking a break, and when we come back, we're going to shout out to some of our fans, and we have some questions from the Ask MCW Cast on Twitter.
I've been waiting
to do. So.
Great.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast, and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com /MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com /MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com /stores /MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag Ask MCW Cast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
Ask MCW Cast. Ask MCW Cast.
All right, and we did have some fans ask MCW Cast last week, so I want to touch on those.
All right.
So Danny Hess asked us when there will be shows again, and we touched on that right before the break. So
Yeah,
I think you've already answered his question.
Pretty much, yeah. It's as soon as we're able, and
It's safe.
and it's safe. And if I guess he's again referencing the MCW arena and shows in Maryland, like Hollywood is our second home. Hopefully the summertime, but I think we'll definitely and too, we were talking about it, but maybe I'll go into a little more detail here. I think probably our first event that we do most likely is probably going to be either in West Virginia or Delaware, and it probably won't be in front of fans. We'll probably Tara, because we've had a little more intimate conversations about this thing, because Tara kind of helps out with a lot of the office stuff at MCW, but we're probably gonna end up taping a show or two that we stream.
Get them in the can.
That we stream online, and they won't be fans there.
Yeah.
I know I've said in the past, like I was never a fan, and for me, I hated seeing wrestling like that when this all started a year ago. But it's kind of the way things are. So I think our first shows back are probably going to be filmed out of state, and will probably be online exclusive shows that we do before we actually get in front of fans.
Yeah.
The fans are getting used to that, though, now.
Yeah.
I think that this,
Well, they have no choice,
year
really.
has, really deprived people of a pastime that they love, much like baseball, football, and that kind of thing. And so I think that people understand that, and they know that that's going to be the first couple events.
Right.
Indeed, yeah.
So it'll probably be the same way with us.
Okay.
But
Good. Another question is from Lou Mahan, longtime fan. He wants to know if there's any word that Marcellus Prime, Napalm, Amber Rodriguez might come back, when we do open back up again. I know they've all been here in the past before. Amber has returned to wrestling, although she doesn't live local anymore. But
right, where is she living at? She had a child too.
She had a child. I'm not 100% sure. I know that she was in the, I want to say, Coast
Look,
Guard.
I loved Amber. I always liked Amber. I think Amber is great. And Napalm and Solo, man, they're two guys that I really thought if they had been as focused on their team as I was in wanting them to be a team, I think they would have probably ended up with a job somewhere. And that's, I think they both wanted singles careers more than the tag team, but I think I still think they could. They look like $1 million. They were back for, Bruiser and everything. Everything happened with RJ kind of brought a lot of people back.
Absolutely.
A lot of people back we haven't heard for a while. But again, not knowing right now, like that we have anything scheduled for a show, it's kind of because things change for people in a moment's notice. I mean, Marshall, I think he lived up in Canada.
Yeah, now he's
for
back
a little
in
while.
town.
He's back, so like that, again. You don't know because people's lives change.
Right.
You know what I mean? 1 minute someone's here that we, 2 months from now we get ready to do a show and he's in Canada. He moved to Canada. So, all that will depend. But obviously Napalm and Solo, I loved them. I loved Amber Rodriguez. They were all part of Black Wall Street, which was one of the, most memorable factions in MCW history. It's hard to say it's hard to say to kind of talk about creative or who we'll have in when right now we still don't have an exact focus, or date on when we are coming back or when we're going to be able to put something together.
And I'm glad you brought up Black Wall Street, because our next question was from Dan Garrett, and he wants us to bring Drolix onto the podcast. So he threw out a name there for us to bring in as a guest.
I'm sure Drolix will be one of the guests we have in. Obviously, Joe Keys today. We have, plenty of opportunities to bring in guests. We're doing this weekly, and there's no doubt he'll be on the radar.
And who was the one who asked that?
That was Dan Garrett.
Okay, Dan, if you follow at MCW Cast 2021, actually a piece of media came out. It was our Throwback Thursday or maybe Flashback Friday. It was a photo of Drolix after he won the 2016 Wrestler of the Year. And we asked the fans, like, if Drolix were on, what were the types of things that you would ask or you would want us to ask? So, Dan Garrett, I want to throw it right back into your court, buddy. When we do eventually have Drolix on here, what would you like us to ask him? Hashtag Ask MCW Cast. Let us know.
Perfect. Thank you. Well said, Larry.
Thank you. Any more?
That's it.
Okay. Cool. Well, you know, I was gonna say before we got to that last question, I was gonna say I know that you've been solidly in Napalm's corner. I remember, 10 years ago when we were doing the Urban Wrestling Federation, when you were a producer for that.
Yeah.
He wasn't even on the show, and you were like, come with me. You know,
Yeah.
I want everyone to see you.
Yeah.
We were in the Hammerstein Ballroom. You wanted him to be in the place to be for any potential opportunity. So I'd love to see Napalm and Marcellus back.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I just personally, I really think, sometimes it's about, from a promoter, and obviously it's just about getting seen and getting that opportunity to be seen
Right.
in order to get an opportunity to perform. And I just, to me, Napalm and Solo always together, I just saw money.
Yeah.
I just thought they looked awesome. And that's not like both of them great attitudes, I think. But as a team, to get two guys together like that, they have to be solely focused on and committed. A great example of that was last week. We were talking to Kevin Eck and how we just threw Eric Chappell and Dirty Money together.
Yes.
And they just all jumped in and ran with it. They ended up getting over and becoming a really over unit in MCW because they all dove headfirst in and they all committed. And personally, I just don't think Napalm and Solo ever really fully committed.
Yeah.
When we put them together as a team. And that's not bashing. I think they were both doing their singles thing elsewhere. Just me. Again, and it's one person's opinion and booking and all that. It's always one person's opinion. But I still think, if given again, what kind of sucks now with the world shutting down and companies aren't signing as much, it's hard to get out there and create that buzz. I just think that I think they were money together. And to me, I saw them and they, to me, they jumped off the page, and I still think they could have an opportunity, but both people, it's tougher with tag teams because you got to get two different people on the same exact page and get them 100% committed to like a partnership. It's like a marriage and a relationship.
Remember Joey and Christian?
Joey and Christian, yeah.
Prime example, Right.
So yeah, that's I've always liked both of them. But back then, I can't believe that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, man. That Urban Wrestling Federation, yeah.
Yeah. Napalm and Solo, there's two guys. Maybe we'll get them on the cast one time and talk about that.
Hey, maybe we can get all of the former Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
They mentioned Amber Rodriguez, I was always a big fan of the Paper Man, Chuck Lennox.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind having all of them in the room with us.
Hey, we got Black Wall Street hanging up on the wall in the studio.
That's right, because they're part of the MCW Pro legacy. And you know what? I think episode 4 is about to be in the books, but did we want to do our kind of taking it on home like Ref Becky would send us?
Sure.
Take it on home.
Sure. We got a couple topics we want to talk about.
Yes, indeed. I'll throw the first one out there. How about the new next big thing? Parker, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Boudreaux.
Yes.
Yes.
I saw that. That's been going around.
So he signed.
Yeah.
He is signed.
So, again, I've seen this all over online, social media the last couple of weeks. Am I out of touch to ask, who is he? I don't even know who he is.
Man, you're not out of touch.
But I saw it said Paul Heyman crowned him or christened him the next Brock Lesnar.
Well, I think it was
true. I don't even know who the guy is. I don't want to see him at,
I mean, I think, again, I hate to not speak intelligently or have all the facts, but I believe it was like a kind of a thing that started on social media. He's the next big thing. I think he refers to himself as the next big thing. And, the Royal Rumble, at Royal Rumble Sunday, Eva Marie and he took a photo together teasing that he was going to come out in the Rumble. I don't think he was signed at this point. But Eva Marie, former WWE diva, was with him on Royal Rumble Sunday. He took a photo to kind of tease, like, is it time for me to come out and enter the Rumble and make a big debut? And how would that have gone over if he came when a lot of people were thinking maybe Brock would be there?
Right. Well,
You know?
it's interesting that a guy that none of us are really familiar with has generated this kind of buzz without actually seeing him in the ring. You know?
Yeah.
Without-
What's his background?
Well, with a name like that, he sounds French-Canadian or French. He's a football player, I believe.
Is he?
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah, he's
I
a
should
football
look up.
player, and he does bear striking resemblance to Brock Lesnar. So, best of luck to you. I'm interested
Which
to
can either be good or bad in the wrestling business. It's kind of like the second generation.
Oh, yeah,
wrestlers,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean?
you know?
Sometimes that can be like a plus, or it can really be a minus.
Well, it
you
sounds
know?
like he's running with it if he's calling himself the next
Yeah.
big thing, and Paulie's kind of, co-signing him. So,
Speaking of big things, what do you think Edge and Roman Reigns? Do you think that's going to be the match we see at WrestleMania?
I think that looks like, to me, when you just that, I think main event WrestleMania.
well, what would be the other option? It would be Edge versus. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on who the red champion is right now. I know Roman is the blue champion. The red champion is anybody. Bueller? Drew McIntyre. I apologize. I apologize, Drew. These belts and all of the stuff we cover. I would rather see Roman Reigns versus Edge.
Yeah.
That would be
To
the
me,
match.
That's a main event caliber match.
I agree.
It's a main event, and I would love to see. I would love to see the crowds again, because I'm really interested in seeing how the fans take to this version of Roman Reigns.
Yes, indeed. We talked about that.
Because they kind of they gave him such a hard time for so long.
Right.
I feel undeservingly. Because they were treating him because he was put in the Christian as the guy by the Machine, and but I'd really love to see. I mean, I wish the heel turn would have been in front of a live crowd.
We all do, Dan.
We all do.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see this version of him.
Yeah, me too. How about it looks like another topic since we're taking it on home. Doors are slowly being opened for companies like AEW, New Japan, Impact. We're seeing the fans kind of trickle in to some of these venues. I imagine they're all in Florida, because Florida's the one. Yeah, that has the most.
Are migrating to Florida,
Right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so this leads us to another question. Do you think Florida is going to be the new promised land for pro wrestling coming out of this entire global gimmick?
Or it could just kind of cause burnout, where like it gets burnt out.
Oversaturated.
Yeah, true.
I think that kind of happened a lot in New Jersey, with independence.
Good call out.
Years ago, remember when the governor deregulated professional wrestling? And you saw a lot of indie groups flock, and it just started running. And I the last couple of years, like, it kind of burnt New Jersey out.
Yeah, one too many.
Yeah. It was like no athletic commission, and all these surrounding states like Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, there was commissions with strict rules, expensive to run. Maybe same type of thing as we come out of this.
Yeah, maybe.
So it could end up burning it out.
Absolutely. I want to ask both of you, did you happen to, after the Rumble, catch the Yokozuna special?
I did not.
Sarah, I also did not catch it, but a lot of the times, because I'm so on social media trying to plug my show, trying to plug this show, I get the news, but kind of like in short burst. So I definitely saw all of everyone else enjoying it and shouting out MCW Pro as appearing in the documentary.
What I was gonna say to answer that is how I heard about it was probably about a half dozen people messaged me and said, "Hey, that's great to hear. You're working with WWE and stuff like that," and they got your the MCW show footage, thinking that there was some agreement. But my response is like, no agreement.
And on our public YouTube channel.
Yeah,
but...
well, it's interesting because, man, the WWE attorneys are absolutely, they will jump at, reaching out to you if you have a picture or something on a flyer.
That's right.
Yeah.
That they use, you've used without permission, and hey, take that photo down. So, no, I did not have any agreement with WWE. So I guess they just grabbed that footage offline and used it in their documentary.
I also got several messages while it was airing. I actually had paused it. I was watching it with my son and went to put him to bed, and I paused it. And when I came back, I had like 10 messages as well. Oh my God, RJ's on the WWE Network. And I said, what? And there, the match that we just showed there, the other person appearing is a very young, short-haired RJ Meyer, the Bruiser, tag teaming there with Yokozuna. And some very eagle-eyed fans spotted that right off the bat. And now they only showed, we have the full match up on our YouTube channel, of course, but they only showed like a short, maybe 3-5 second clip in the Yokozuna special, but people spotted him, and I thought that was pretty cool.
But in saying that, since we're bringing up the topic of Yokozuna, he came in for that show as a surprise, and Tom Casati, hey bro, who brought him in, and we had a show the following weekend down the Eastern Shore, and Tom said, hey, we're just going to stay for the week in Baltimore, and Tom took care of the hotel for him and Yoko, and so I got to spend a lot of time with him because we kind of hung out at the hotel and for the week, and man, what a gentle giant and amazing guy was. I'm grateful for that time. He came down Bone Breakers.
I remember the pictures.
At the time, we had Bone Breakers and did training and taught school. And just he was a main top guy coming off WWE, and he was a guy that even as a wrestling fan and being in the business, like I'd watch him having matches on Raw and just like cringe, like, man, this guy's scary, But he couldn't have been farther from that guy in real life. I got to spend a whole week with him. We pretty much hung out every day, got together, did dinner at night. He'd come to the school. We hung out that whole week, really, like in between the Michael's 8th Avenue show and our shows down on the Eastern Shore. And what a great person, man.
Yeah.
He was just a great human being.
Yeah, I missed that.
That was what everyone said in the documentary. I mean, it was great. It was riveting. I haven't watched all the other Icon ones. I usually watch pay-per-view and go to bed. But this one, I was riveted. I couldn't stop watching.
Yeah, the funniest thing that I remember, me and Earl the Pearl would joke about it all the time. He loved Sunkiss. So he would send us, he'd like go to the, I mean, he was a large dude, but everything, like, just big boned and everything. Just a large guy. We're just around him and you're like, man, this guy's just a large person. And he would say, like, hey, go to the soda machine and get me like 15 or 20 Sunkiss. Like, we'd pretty much buy a case of soda out in the hotel. But the most amazing thing was his hands and wrists and everything were so big that when he would drink a can of soda, the can looked so tiny. And me and Earl the Pearl would be like looking at each other like, look, because we were like, it was like a shot glass. Yeah. Like the can of Sunkiss was like a shot glass. And it was just so massive. Just everything about him was so big that he made a Sunkiss can look like a little shot glass. And then be done with it. But yeah, he was such a good dude, man.
Yes, indeed. A little bit before my time, I think I joined the Bone Breaker School as an admin assistant right after he had come and, graced us with his presence. But it's great to see the WWE doing something like this in memory and honor.
Yeah, and it's a surprise, that they used our footage and put it on there.
Yeah.
That was his first indie back, I think, right after that he did a surprise on. So
maybe you should send a telegram to your cousin Jerry McDevitt and ask him,
yeah. What's going on with this? I didn't sign a release for this.
Right. Well,
royalty check coming.
Rest in peace to Yokozuna, Rodney, Anawai, and also, I hate to send us off with a down note, but we have another RIP, kind of a podcast 10 bell salute to send to the Natural Butch Reed.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, the Natural.
Saw that the other day, yeah.
So he passed away, and definitely
paved the way, because I tell you what, when I talk about like Yokozuna being intimidated, I remember Doom.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And the Steiners. And I love the Steiners. Love the Steiner brothers. So when Doom came around, and we're just pounding the Steiners into the dirt, as a fan watching, I was like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like I was intimidated by him as a fan. Like these guys, you know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy looking back. They wore the mask. They were already established.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Simmons. And that was the day pre like
Internet, yeah,
and sheets and all that stuff. I was not a smart fan.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't watching Meltzer or reading Meltzer and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And it was like the big, who is it? Who is
Yeah.
him? You know.
Paved the way not only for that that intimidation factor, but also for African American wrestlers,
Yeah,
for the
both
Bobby
of them, right.
Lashleys, the Apollo Cruzes, the
Right.
Hurt Business.
Absolutely.
A lot of those guys probably
Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
Probably these were some of their first heroes because they
Right.
looked like them. You
Right.
know, so R.I.P.
Yeah, absolutely.
Butch Reed, and I think we have one more 10 bell to kind of not really a wrestling personality, but
An
definitely.
entertainment personality.
And you know something, Tara? Right before wrestling would come on, or maybe right after wrestling would go off, Saved by the Bell would a lot of the times be a part of the Saturday morning routine.
Right.
So, as much as Hulk Hogan and Hacksaw Jim Duggan were on my TV growing up,
So
R.I.P.
Screech.
Yeah, Screech, Dustin Diamond, who tragically passed away at 44.
Same age as RJ, coincidentally.
And what did he have?
He had lung cancer.
Lung
But
cancer?
it started in his spine, apparently. And then, I guess over the summer, he had a lump on his throat, but didn't want to go to the doctors or something. And then by the time he went, he was so sick. And
Right.
it's very fast. I mean, when it takes over your whole body, that's what happened, as well with Bruiser. And,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, we kind of saw that,
Mhm.
unfortunately,
Yep,
through
unfortunately.
RJ once.
Thank you to Screech for entertaining us for all those years.
Yeah, shout out Screech, shout out the Natural Butch Reed, and R.I.P. Yokozuna.
And shout out to all the fans of the MCW cast.
Yeah, we don't want to leave on a down note. Yeah,
that have gotten us through. That have gotten us through
Placement
episode
there.
4
that's right.
and on to episode 5.
On to
next week.
episode 5. Yeah, next Tuesday at 8. You know where to find us.
And if you have a suggestion for who you'd like to see in studio, ask MCW Cast, and we'll see what we can make happen. All
Yeah,
right?
we want to hear from you.
We do.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
And girls.
Hey, girls.
And girls.
That's right.
Peace out.
Equal opportunity.
Watch hundreds of hours of MCW Pro Wrestling action at MCWRageTV.com. That's MCWRageTV.com.